Steve. You're not blocking.
I already brought out that one. We'll do it. That's probably a new right? No.
Take tomorrow off.
You might need to.
You might want to should. I feel bad. Oh, yeah, she's down here. At least she's sleep bites.
Such an old lady thing to say, isn't it? I'm going to Bob Evans for the coffee.
Yes.
You might be over 30. Yeah.
So is it the coffee? I did see that. I was actually there not that long ago. It's gonna be in the news.
Fixed up, yeah. Somebody probably called me. What was that?
Raphael Sanchez.
Yeah, that's what.
So did.
For sure.
So obviously nobody is, everyone was announced. They want to put their name on it. And let it go through.
Oh, wow.
Or we making a motion to send it to the council. I'd probably make like a send it to there. So that has to go through them before I answer it.
Hey, Rick, how do I instruct people to go to Maps? Where is that?
I'm going to post it actually online. I can post it. Or I can text you the link.
Well, I'd like to say it publicly.
Yeah, YouTube, City of Tipton, Facebook, or City of Tipton YouTube. 10 foot. And streaming right at the top. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm putting it on social media.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir.
That would be done. Traffic still.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the City of Tipton Plan Commission, November 10th, 2020 regular stated meeting. First order of business, we'll call this meeting to order and do a pledge of allegiance. Please raise with me and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oops, sorry. Very good. The first order of business is we'll take a roll call so we know who all is present. Mrs. Coker, would you care to? Well, we can just start down here on the left.
Adrian Roach.
Jade Crawford,
Michelle Owens.
Aaron Coe,
Jackie Carden.
Jim Purvis.
Sophie Hufford.
Corey Mahan,
Lindsay Ogden.
Steve Niblick, staff.
David Smith, staff.
Judy Coker, staff.
Mrs. Coker, can you verify that we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum. It takes 6 voting members.
Very good. So we have official quorum. I would like to say that we are live streaming this. It's at the City of Tipton YouTube channel, so it is being live streamed. I would like to say, just as an order of awareness here, and we think we all know this, but we strongly recommend, since Tipton County is still in the orange phase status, if you feel comfortable wearing a mask, feel free so. We do have masks up here. Once I start speaking a lot, I would probably take this off some, but if you feel so inclined, we have masks for you. The first thing that I'd like to take care of is I would like somebody to motion for a modification to the agenda tonight. I would like to have our staff reports and old business and any new business tabled till next month. So from the commission here, I would be looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
It has been moved, and I am looking for a second.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Michelle seconded that. We will take this by voice vote. All in favor of this motion, signify with the yea.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. What we do need to do is a little housework here. We will need to go ahead and go through the minutes from the October 14th Plan Commission minutes. Mrs. Coker, are there any changes to these from what you sent to us in our digital packages?
There are no changes.
Very good.
I'd make a motion that we accept the minutes of the October 14th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
We have a motion on the floor from Jackie Carden. I'm looking for a second.
I second
And we have a second by Councilman Tupper. Woman, excuse me. Again, voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
it. Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. Well, we'll jump right into the meat of the meeting here. I welcome everyone. I look forward to having a good discourse and getting everybody a chance to air their views. So what we will start with is Director Niblick. Could you please give us a brief description of what a PUD, a planned unit development, is and how that fits in with our local ordinances?
I'll try to be brief. The PUD stands for Planned Unit Development. This was allowed by state statute all the way back in 1995 as an alternative to development here in the state of Indiana. In our zoning ordinance adopted by the city of Tipton, there are 3 places that I want to highlight that clearly identify and allow planned unit developments within the city of Tipton's planning jurisdiction. Just for reference, these are sections 302.10, 303, Table A, and we have a large section of the zoning ordinance, Article 6, that spends quite a bit of time allowing and discussing planned unit developments within Tipton. Tipton, there's a process, and I do want to just kind of briefly explain the process, both for the Plan Commission and for the public. Very clearly, this is a first step. If this does receive a vote and a recommendation, and it goes on to the city council, and they approve it, there will still be a number of other approvals that is going to be required before you see any kind of construction out on this property. So I just want to take a real quick summary of what those steps are. The first thing tonight that the Plan Commission is being asked to consider is a planned unit development district ordinance, or what I think hopefully we can just kind of summarize as a district ordinance or ordinance. That's what we're talking about tonight. And what this is done, or what this will do, is actually rezone property in the application from its current zoning of S1 suburban residential, which is a zoning classification that does allow homes out on that area. It would rezone that property and change the zoning maps to where that would be identified as a planned unit development. The other thing that this ordinance does tonight is a PUD it sets aside our current development standards. Development standards may be setbacks, lot sizes, height of homes, height of structures, really anything that's in the ordinance that controls or regulates development is set aside. And this ordinance that is being considered tonight replaces those standards, those development standards, with development standards that's only applicable to this piece of property. And so one of the things that I think you'll hear about and talk about will be these development standards. Are they too much? Are they too large? Those are the things that will be discussed.
If I could interject shortly there, Director. What he just said was this is a unique set of circumstances for this property. Doesn't establish protocol going forward, doesn't change anything other than this particular set of this property. Doesn't mean it has to be done this way again. Doesn't mean it can't be this way again.
Exactly. And again, as Jim said, this does not set any kind of precedence for any other kind of planned unit development that may be considered here in Tipton. A couple other steps that's I need to explain is that the Plan Commission tonight, or at a future date, ultimately they're being asked to give a recommendation to the City Council, just like a typical rezoning. And frankly, the city and the Plan Commission is familiar with rezonings. Most recent, I think, was the 60 acres that the city and county owned just at the end of Industrial Boulevard. That was a rezoning. It came through the Plan Commission and was given on to the City Council for their adoption. So the process isn't anything new. It's just that this PUD is a little bit different. Again, I just mentioned that what the Plan Commission will ultimately do is give a recommendation, favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation whatsoever, to the City Council. That recommendation may alter and amend what's been presented by the petitioner, Arbor Homes, or it may not. We'll just have to wait and see, again, what the Plan Commission chooses to do. Even at that point, once if the Plan Commission gives a recommendation, if the City Council adopts this ordinance or an amended ordinance establishing that area as a planned unit development, the next step will be platting the process, platting the property. That's a public hearing in front of the Plan Commission. Neighbors would be notified. And that is where the details that I think a lot of folks, including maybe the Plan Commission members, would like to see. Specifically, location of a playground, location of a tornado siren, the location and construction plans for how the street and sidewalks, the utilities are going to be built. Drainage will be looked at, location of fire hydrants. All those details will come later. We don't have that right now. This is a first step to even get to that kind of detail. The Plan Commission will consider a primary plat on the entire project. It'll be a public meeting, public hearing. Neighbors would be notified, they would hear it. But there would also be a secondary plat as the subdivision comes in sections or phases. The Plan Commission would hear that, and that's where, again, the details of the actual construction of the actual subdivision would be looked at and approved. There's really one other step to this, and that is what we're really asking for and what the commissioner or the council will do will be primary plan approval. If that's approved, I would say at the time when the developer comes in for plat approval, that they would also come back in for secondary plan approval. And all that simply is a double check to make sure that what the Plan Commission recommends and what the city council adopts is actually going to be done. So these commitments, things that they've put into their ordinance that will be considered tonight will be double checked and ensured by this body that they are in fact going to be done. That's my summary of the process. Again, I want to emphasize that tonight is a first step. This is not the last step, and there'll be quite a bit more review in a public setting than tonight. Jim, there's a couple other things real briefly I want to bring up. The Plan Commission members, I do know at least a couple of the Plan Commission members received anonymous letters in the mail. I will tell you that's not acceptable. That's ex parte communication. And I'm just going to say to whoever sent that or whoever delivered those, don't do it. That information is not admissible tonight. This is almost like a court. And if a judge is considering something, people aren't able to just send letters to the judge on a case. So I just want the Plan Commission members to understand that any material you got tonight really is not admissible. Our rules and ordinances allows that if anybody wanted to submit information to this board, they had until 4 o'clock today to deliver it to my office to where I could give that to them. But anything that was delivered to them personally is wrong. I'll just say it right now. I'm not really pleased with that, but I will also say Tipton and Tipton County is not the only community to do that. But I wanted to take the opportunity to just share that is not acceptable. Two more things, and this is more directed to the Plan Commission. During the public hearing, I would like that to be an opportunity for the Plan Commission to listen to, and Jim will have some rules and some guidelines, but really this is an opportunity to give everybody here that wishes to speak the opportunity to come forward and share their views. I would almost ask the Plan Commission members to simply listen, take notes. If you have a question, write it down. But let's not get into that type of asking questions of the public why they're up there. If they have questions, maybe of the developers or else, maybe we can answer those, but really the developer, we want to ask those questions after the public hearing.
So let me interject again there.
Sure.
So that's important, and I was going to mention that after the public meeting. Our chance as board members to get into the details that we need answered for ourselves will be after the public hearing, and then we can ask pointed questions to the petitioner, and as well too if we have further questions for somebody that had a comment, feel free. I will try to run that in a very systematic and orderly manner, though.
Right.
But I did want to make it was I liken to after the public comment, the lights kind of go down on the audience and the lights shine on us. That's the time that we will delve into it. So that's a good way to think of it.
One last thing in the ordinance that was sent to the Plan Commission members on Friday. There is one part that I think was something was left out of it, and that is on page 6 of the ordinance and if you actually look down page 6 under general development standards.
So the ordinance he's talking about is a district ordinance.
That's and it would be the one dated November 4, 2021. That is the ordinance that we're considering tonight as presented. But if you look down on page 6 and number 4, it's blank. Originally, it was a paragraph that discussed utilities. And I know Jim is here somewhere from the utility, from Tipton Municipal Utilities. I would offer that this one was inadvertently left out, and that it should be, at least if you consider it, that you should include this language. And I did not make copies for everybody, but I do want to read it. Number 4, utilities. All utilities within the district will be designed and constructed per the published utility construction standards and will be trenched and located behind the curb. This commitment is subject to the approval of the utilities that will serve the community. Private utilities shall be placed in the utility easements and shall not be within the public right-of-way.
So this is
Director,
number 8.
Hold on, that is number 8.
Yeah.
Is it down there?
Mhm.
Oh,
So
okay, hang on.
It's
a
just a
minute.
numbering error, I
All right,
believe.
hang on a minute. Then, okay, what you see is that was the original. The additional language that the utilities would like is right after, again, what you have, all utilities within the district will be trenched. Jim would like the additional language after district will be trenched, will be designed and constructed per the published utility construction standards and will be trenched. So there's just a little bit of addition right after will be entrenched.
Okay, so I want to make sure we get this straight.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
All utilities within the district will be designed
And constructed per the published utility construction standards and will be,
hold on, per the published,
Public utility.
per the published utility construction standards and will be. Those are
Okay.
the words that just need to be included in there.
so everybody understand what we're injecting in point 8? We clear on that? Is that straight? Uh,
Okay.
David, does this materially affect this?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
It's also, if it was not in there, it's something the plan commission could add as a requirement of their recommendation.
okay. Yes, sir. Very good. Very good.
That's really all I had, Jim, unless you have questions.
Okay, so what I would like to ask is, Director Niblick, were the proper publications published in the paper?
Yes, it was.
They were.
There was, we also received, the legal notice was published on October 29th. And we also asked that the petitioner Arbor Homes send out 47 letters, certified letters. We do have the receipts for those.
Very good.
And we also placed 2 signs on the property advertising tonight's public hearing.
So proper notifications have been given by our ordinances. Was there a technical review committee meeting held?
We did hold a meeting on October 21st, and this included city departments and 3 county departments.
And those results were?
I think that what occurred from that is that there was some negotiations, some changes. Again, the utilities language wanted to be added, just to clarify that their standards would be met. Some of the original requests, as far as changing the development standards, were modified and altered and increased or changed since that original. And what you have, what was sent to you in the planned unit development ordinance that you have before you was as a result of that
Very good.
meeting.
Okay. So the submission of the packet is complete and the appropriate fees have been paid.
That's correct.
Very good. All right. Now we're ready to start the fun. Would the petitioner please stand up and state your name and tell us what we're here. Let's see.
Yeah, hello everyone. Just give me one moment. I'll set up the laptop for our presentation tonight.
The TV's off.
Did it die?
Should be on the red lights. Red light. They both have red lights. Can you get it on?
Is there?
Yeah, that's
There you go.
Once again, thank you for having us this evening. We look forward to presenting our proposal to the commission as well as the community members that are here. My name is Charles Russell, Entitlement Manager with Arbor Homes. I'm here with Christian Rector. He is our VP of Acquisitions and Entitlement. Will be available after the public hearing, not after the public hearing, but after we present for your questions. To introduce Arbor Homes for anyone that maybe doesn't know who we are. We are one of the largest home builders in central Indiana we've been around for 27 years. For 24 of those, we were a family-owned and operated company. In that time, we built over 20,000 homes in several different communities. In 2018, we were fortunate enough to become a partner with Berkshire Hathaway and become part of their family of companies. And that has really allowed us the opportunity to expand and scale our production so that we can come to communities like Tipton. We're located as far south as Columbus, and we have communities in Kokomo. Some of you may have went to visit them over the last week to see some of our existing communities. To begin our presentation tonight, we are looking at this site. It is approximately 138 acres west of town. It is bounded on the north side by Jefferson Street, State Road 28 to the south, and 300 along its western boundary. There's some landmarks noted there on the aerial, the Moose Lodge, Trinity Wesleyan, and Pioneer, so you can orient yourselves. This area, as well as the land, the majority of the land that surrounds it is, as Steve mentioned, S1, suburban residential. And then the few parcels that are zoned for light industrial would include, the Pioneer facility as well as the county sheriff's office. When it comes to planning for future growth, and one of the items that we look at when considering coming to a community is, what does their comprehensive plan say? As you know, comprehensive plans are used by cities and towns to really help guide growth and development. When looking at Tipton's comprehensive plan, our site is indeed located within one of the noted residential growth areas. So we feel confident that this is a logical site for residential growth. We're not skipping properties. We are contiguous with the town boundaries, and we do have an annexation proposal to be annexed into the city of Tipton at a later date. Again, our request tonight is to rezone this property to a PUD. Think of a PUD as a miniature zoning ordinance that is site specific. Plan Commission members, you have the full PUD document for you. These are some highlights on the screen. We would be proposing 7,200 square foot lots that are approximately 55 feet wide. Our setbacks would be 20 feet from the street in the front, and then side setbacks would range from 10 feet to 15 feet between structures, depending on any options that the home buyers choose to add to their home, such as a third car garage. And as part of this request, I'd like to make it an intentional point that any standard not specifically outlined in our PUD, within the PUD, we designate an underlying zoning district, and that would remain the S1 district. So anything not expressly shown in the PUD document would default to the standard within the existing S1 district. On the screen now, you'll see our concept plan. We are proposing 339 lots on this 138 acres. It's really divided into two sections because of the creek and the floodway that runs through the property. On the eastern side, that would be the top left corner on the screen, or top right corner on the screen. That part of the property would have two access points along Jefferson, and the western parcel would have an access point onto 300, as well as an access point onto State Road 28. I know there are concerns about traffic, and in the next stages of this project, we would have to conduct a traffic study with NDOT in order to gain access onto the state highway. And so as part of that study, they would look at traffic counts, and then we would look at the recommendations for any improvements that they would require for access onto 28. Additionally, I'd like to note that any of our stormwater and drainage that is on the site, that will be managed through the on-site retention ponds that you see on the site plan. And then as part of our PUD document, we are committing to providing a system of trails as well as a playground. The exact locations and length of the trail is yet to be determined. Right now, conceptually, that trail we have at 1.4 miles. And then the playground location is, again, yet to be determined. That'll be decided at the next stage as we start to figure out some of those details that were mentioned. Here are just some character images of what those amenities would look like. The trail would be wide enough for folks to bike or run, jog, walk their dog. And then the images of the playground are pretty typical of the playgrounds that we provide in our other communities as well. And then as for the homes that we would be proposing on this property as part of this project, this is just a small sample of the homes that we construct. We provide our home buyers with 11 unique floor plans that they can choose from. Each of those floor plans comes with a variety of options that may include optional sunrooms, screened-in porches, covered patios, third-car garages are popular, and those are at the discretion of our home buyers. Again, when you buy with Arbor Home, something unique that we offer is we give you the opportunity to come to our Indianapolis office and walk through our design center with our professional design staff. And this is really what differentiates us from other home builders. Typically, home buyers would have to choose a predetermined package of materials and colors for the home. We allow our home buyers to walk through our design center with our staff, and they get to really choose all of their interior finishes, their colors, the exterior colors, and those materials as well. And we find that that experience really is really beneficial for the home buyer, and it also provides some architectural variety within the community as these homes get built over time. We certainly do not want to build the same home over and over and over, and that is not something that surely Tipton would not want us to do either. And so by allowing this flexibility in floor plans and materials for our home buyers, we are able to achieve that architectural diversity that towns and cities are really looking for. With that being said, we are looking for these homes in today's dollars, estimating these homes to sell for anywhere from $275,000 to $300,000. Again, that is in today's dollars, in today's market. And the construction, we're proposing 300 plus homes. The constructions of those homes would occur over a period of several years. We would develop the property in sections as it is feasible. And with that, I can make myself available for any questions you may have.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have some questions. I think it's probably more appropriate to hold those for the time being, and we'll go in, before we go into public hearing, there are a couple other comments I wanted to have. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Russell. What I would like to hear, if you want to go ahead and sit down, the county surveyor is here. Is Jason here? Can you speak to this is Jason Henderson, the county surveyor. Would you like to talk to us regarding the drainage?
Absolutely. As I heard them mention, they're showing some retention areas on their property. Anything that's going to be done on this project, or any projects that fall within the Big Cicero Creek watershed, as we work through some ourselves, will have to be designed to their standards. That's embedded in your zoning ordinance. That's
To whose standards?
the Big Cicero Creek Joint Drainage Board, sorry. That's who they would be designing to. And actually, if this development were to occur, with those storage areas, they will be required to release the water at a slower rate than what is currently being released into those ditches now. So it would allow for storage of that water upstream, and they would only have a couple points of access into those open drains. So I just want to make that clear to this board that if they get past this, they will go in front of Big Cicero with the proper calculations. They will have a review there, and that will be adopted or approved. I just wanted to point out that the rate of release would be less than what it currently is.
That should help any flooding.
Oh, yes, it would. It would help store water upstream, because it works its way into the golf course, which works its way into Cicero, which works its way through Tipton. So
I had one pointed question for you that I
Yes.
thought of. So you've seen the concept plan. How far does the widening of Big Cicero, or the shelving project of Big Cicero Creek go? Does it go through that piece?
no, it does not.
Okay,
It
I
does
did not
not.
think so.
No, sir.
Very good.
All right.
No,
I
not
just wanted to
yet.
point that
No,
out.
not yet. Yes, sir. Sorry.
I'll hang there in the back.
Yes, well, before you leave,
Yes.
does the commission have any particular questions to Surveyor Henderson?
Sir.
Okay, very good. You'll have a chance. We'll give you a chance. I would like to let the Mayor Dolzell come up and give a comment that he would like to make, please.
I appreciate it very much. I just want to make a couple statements, make the public aware of, and to make the commission aware of. That we are well aware of the need to improve the intersections that lead to the area of this proposed subdivision. Mr. Russell had mentioned that earlier, and we're committed to investing the funds necessary to make these intersections safe accesses to future housing growth in the community. And yes, that may involve roundabouts, just to let you know. Okay, we've been informed by both the builder, Arbor Homes, and the property owner that they intend to seek voluntary annexation for this property. Mr. Russell also made that point. And to my friends on Facebook, neither I nor any member of my family have any business interest whatsoever in this property. So just want to make everybody sure of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very good. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we will move into our public hearing. So I would like to set some ground rules and make sure we're all on the same sheet of music here. When you come up, we would like to take a record of if you're going to make a comment. It helps our minutes. So if you haven't signed the sheet, feel free to come up, but we'll get you to sign at that point in time. That doesn't mean you can't talk if you hadn't signed the sheet. I want everybody to have their free take, okay? We will take comments. I'd like to take comments in order. I would just, again, for meeting minute purposes, we're going to ask all in favor to come up one time and all opposed to come up, and we'll probably do all opposed first, okay? What I'd like you to do when you come in, you state your name and your address, and if you're in favor or opposed. Feel free to state the reason that you are for or against. If there are reasons you are for or against, we would appreciate you stating those. What I will not allow happen is a restate. If the comment that you are for or opposed have already been stated, I would like you to come up and say something like this. For example, I, Joe Blow, live at 128 Center Lane. I support this plan unit development for the reason as stated by or because of. I would also like to state another reason why I'm opposed or support this. All right. This will help us make a timely meeting. I will not allow you to ramble on and keep going, but I do want you to all talk your piece. But if your point has been made, please come up and say, I'm in support of this point, or I'm in opposition to this point, and I would like to add. Fair enough? So, and then to the commission, this is our time to listen. Okay, we will get our chance to talk details and standards and any return questions we may have. So take notes if you have a question for somebody that comes up and wants to publicly comment. Very good. So we would start first. Let's do it. If you've signed the form, and if or not, but if you haven't signed, please step to the podium. Let's do the opposed first. So if you're opposed to this planned unit development, please step forward, state your name and your address, and make sure we got your signature.
Good evening. My name is Mike Ullman. I live at 2544 West State Road 28.
Excuse me, last name?
Ullman, B-O-L-L-M-A-N. And I'm opposed, as you know. I've lived there since about 2016. If you guys are from around here, I live in Fred Bell's old house. So if you know that, that's where I live. Okay. That was our dream home. We bought that. We walked out the back door and had a beautiful, that year, a bean field behind us. We loved our view. We have a 13-foot wide sliding door across the back of our home. It's a beautiful morning every morning when we look out that way. We moved there to get away from basically what's being proposed tonight. My wife is from Hamilton County. She grew up seeing all these things coming in and wanted to get away from it. I grew up in Bunker Hill. We still have cornfields and not much else. We asked our realtor about this, what was going to happen with Tipton, was it growing, things like that. We were told there was a comprehensive plan that kind of said, there's really not going to be much growth behind you. Other parts of the town may be growing, Buttonwood, things like that around. This kind of got dropped on us pretty quick here in the last 10 days. So I did a lot of research, a lot of talking to other people around, some of my neighbors here. We've had some talking. But what I found was a few things. On page 37 of the comprehensive plan, there's a map that shows the north side of the ditch, and Mr. Russell had it up a few minutes ago. That part is residential. I don't think anybody will argue that can be here. The southern half, or the western half, says agriculture. So one side is one way, one side is the other, and it's even colored that way on the map that was up there. Page 45, same thing. It says residential development in agricultural areas should be limited to preserve the area's rural aesthetic and discourage premature conversion of Tipton's productive farmland. That's what we thought we were buying up against. It's not our land. People can do what they like, but that's why we chose our home. Went to the comprehensive plan for the county, and it also says the north side of the ditch, town residential, the south side, agricultural. So I looked a little bit about the PUD, and I read Article 6 of the ordinance. The ordinance says on 602.01, PUD districts are subject to the standards and purposes of this article and the intent of this ordinance and must be consistent with the goals of the Tipton City Comprehensive Plan. Must is very important. It's a legal word. It means you're obligated to do something. It's not a may or you should or you kind of have to. You have to. It's mandatory. This means development on the south side of the ditch can't happen. It doesn't follow with the comprehensive plan. Arbor Homes has agreed to this in the past. A couple weeks ago, Mr. Russell was quoted in the Tribune saying, "We feel it's right in line with the Kokomo comprehensive plan." Again, this one isn't in line with Tipton's. In Cicero last April, Arbor Homes was turned down by their commission 9-0, and the representative from Arbor was Paul Munoz. He said he agreed the comprehensive plan should be followed. Their plan calls for it to remain agricultural. When Arbor Homes submits their PUD, they submit the statement of intent. I believe it's page 2 or 3 in the packet they gave you. The proposed development for McCordsville, the proposed development is consistent with the goals and objectives of the town of McCordsville comprehensive plan. They go on to say several goals within the comprehensive plan will be addressed within the Meadows development. And again, Arbor Homes recognizes the importance of being consistent with the goals because they add that to their statement. Nothing for Tipton. The ordinance is very firm and very exact. It must be consistent with the goals of the Tipton City Comprehensive Plan. The comprehensive plan is very clear which side of the creek is allowed to be residential, which side should be agricultural. I said must was a legal word before. It's part of the law. An ordinance in town is a law just like a bill in Congress. If we ignore must tonight, we have to ignore it 146 other times in the ordinances. Something like drainage. Drainage and erosion control systems must be safe to persons and maintained at all times. If we stop maintenance, the county can save a lot of money on these ditch projects. Hearing for development plan reviews must provide notification. Not publishing it, you keep me from popping, all right? In-ground swimming pool fences must be 4 feet tall. Surely that's not important. I know you guys don't dismiss this 145 other times. I'm asking you to not dismiss it tonight. Since there can't be any development in the area I'm talking about, this is kind of only to illustrate how shocking this is. We talked about traffic and the mayor mentioned it as well. Shelbyville turned down this Arbor Homes subdivision because they had no traffic study done. There hasn't been one done here either. And they're saying we're going to do it after permission's been given. How can you give permission for something when you don't know what it's going to affect? How can you know what's going to happen and then without giving permission first? Arbor said, according to NDOT, Arbor has not been in contact with them as of the end of last week. And they admitted on last week's Zoom call that they needed acceleration, deceleration lanes. We know they're not in the plans, and as Mr. Dillick said, those details are to be worked out. But somebody's going to lose some property there. Either the map we saw tonight or somebody on the other side of the street is going to lose some property to make those lanes. There's just not enough room. On the Zoom call last week, we asked about police, fire, and other services. It was said fiscal impact studies need to be done. Again, why are we waiting to do those after permission's been given? One of my neighbors brought up questions about the easement just to the west of the existing row of homes along 28. I don't know if it was just me or how I was taking things, but Arbor didn't even seem to know that easement was there. And there's a little slice of land there that isn't my neighbor's, but it's not really a cornfield either. We talked about the floodway as well on the Zoom call. Arbor said they were not going to do anything in that area as far as development. What about maintenance? Who's taking care of that ditch? Right now, the owner of the field mows that ditch, I'll say 3-4 times a year. Keeps it down, keeps it clean. Who's going to do that after this goes in? Who's going to do it during construction? And then who's going to do it after Arbor leaves? If you look at the cover of the document you got from Arbor, a beautiful home on the front, notice that house can't exist in Canal Row. They're allowing up to, or a minimum to, of 15 feet between homes. That home doesn't have any homes next to it. I couldn't vote for any of you sitting here today, except for Mr. Purvis, actually. I live out in the county. I don't live in the city limits. But I do know that we've come this far in the process where an ordinance says that you must follow the city comprehensive plan. It says you must follow it. The last point I'll make is this. The mayor said in this monthly message, the city of Tipton continues to move towards modest, controlled growth. Our current population is 4,969. Assuming 4 people per home in 340 homes, that's over 1,300 new residents. That's 27% increase. That's not modest. If any of you got a 27% raise, you consider that large, if not flat out huge. Tonight, you're going to make a recommendation, or maybe not. No matter what you read on Facebook, the city council doesn't even have to follow you. I would ask that you at least table this tonight, if not flat out deny it. There's just too much unknown with traffic and all the other changes that are going to happen to our community. Everybody says they want people to move to Tipton. I moved here. My wife moved here. My neighbors moved here. We're already here. And 10 days ago, we got a bomb dropped on us that our whole neighborhood was changing. What do you say to the people around us whose property values are decreasing? When you put 340 lots, 340 homes on tiny lots, 0.16 acres. I live on a half acre. That's not bad. But 0.16, that's pretty tiny. What happens to the land over the next 6-7 years while Arbor's filling it in? Right now, the corn's been cut. I can see some weeds growing like there is in every cornfield. Who's going to maintain that land before it's developed? What about noxious weeds? We have a county ordinance against that. Is Arbor responsible for that? I have other ideas too. I don't want to just complain and say that everything's negative up here. Could we take some funds, some of these funds that we're talking about tonight, for adding to the sewer systems and water systems, and incentivize some local builders, some local renovators? There's plenty of dilapidated homes, empty lots. Why not encourage people to come to town where the services already exist? Some historic homes are ready to be rehabbed and reloved by a new family. I was an outsider once. I don't know much about Tipton. I don't have that last name that people nod and know from generations back. We have plenty of those around here, of course. But the community welcomed me and my family. Made us feel like our home was the right place from the start. Tipton's different. People like different. People don't want to live in places where homes are stacked up like little boxes and deal with traffic. They want to walk through town, grab a Coke at Quick Cup, go to the French flea market, and maybe end up at Diana for a date night. If anybody asks me when I'm at work about crime or traffic, I say we don't have that in Tipton, and it's a running joke. But I don't want to stop saying that about some kind of development like this. I hope you take my words to heart. I hope you realize this development moving forward is a bad thing. If you ignore the words in the ordinance, must is an obligation. It means you must follow the words of your comprehensive plan. The area to the south of the ditch must remain agriculture. We believed the city when they had this plan, and we made the biggest investment of our lives. Thank you for your time. I can answer any questions if you have any.
If we do, we will call you back. Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
My name is Rex Cole. I live at 2580 West State Road 28, 2 houses down from my neighbor who just spoke. I agree with everything that he has said, but I would also like to put in there, I can vote no on this because of lack of clarification. Okay, right now, our area, our row of houses called Smith Addition. Okay, I've lived there for 28 years, raised a family, gonna retire soon. So funds are gonna be a little tight. So my question is, I don't know, they expect to be annexed. So is Smith Addition going to be annexed too? Are we going to be forced to hook into city utilities? Right now we're on wells and septic. Okay. And I noticed on the plan, there's a retention pond going right behind my house. What happens whenever we get heavy rains that flood Big Cicero? Is it going to flood my house now? I've got the highest property. My house never floods because I'm the highest house in that division. So, I mean, with all the construction and the retention pond going in, are we going to be forced to hook up to city utilities, or can we maintain our septics and wells? And, you know, what's gonna happen with the retention pond that they propose to put in behind my house? If we get the heavy rains, is it now gonna flood my property? So those are just some concerns that I have, but I agree with everything that Mr. Bone has said. And so at this point in time, until clarification can be made, I have to oppose it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Hi, my name is Christy Boyer, and I live at 1662 South, 300 West. So my house sits where Jefferson dead ends into 300, so right there on the corner. So we bought our house 11 years ago, and when we purchased our home, across the street we had a huge woods that we were able to look at. We had cornfields, and I have 3 boys and a girl. So my kids love outdoor sports. They ride 4-wheelers. They enjoy living in a rural community. We have almost 3 acres at our property. And I also am concerned about being annexed in with being right across the street from this. We chose country living. We chose Tipton. My husband and I, neither one are from Tipton, so we decided to relocate here to this community. And so, this is very disappointing to think that, our country living is being jeopardized. Also, living there on the corner down from Pioneer, I can tell you that we have at least 100 semis go past our house every day. There is no way that semis can go past an addition like this at 100 a day with this number of people. And I have a soon approaching teenage driver. And to think of that many teenage drivers being in a neighborhood, let's say there's 400, 300 houses. And let's say that we have even 100 teenage drivers. I myself was hit by a junior in high school this year. One of my best friends was just hit by a junior in high school this last week. They are learning to drive, and to deal with this many drivers and semis in one place. Earlier this week, my road was shut down because a semi had an accident there at the intersection. The road was shut for 4 hours. So I just have a lot of concerns about that. If we're gonna do this, I really think that the semis are gonna have to be diverted either straight through the middle, 228, or you're gonna have to consider some other, road plan, because this is not gonna work to have all these people and semis. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyer.
Thank you.
Matthew Cook. I live at 3972 South 50 East in Tipton. I don't live anywhere near this division, so it's not going to affect me right away, I guess. It's going to affect my children, I think, more. I'm worried about the schools. We don't have enough bus drivers as it is. Our class sizes now are in the 20s per class, which is great. We moved here. We grew up here. My wife and I met in high school, and we moved back here from Washington, D.C. suburbs, where the graduating classes were 1,000 kids per class. Here, there are 126 roughly. If you build these homes, the average home has about 2.5 kids. So you're talking 70 kids per graduating class. We're almost doubling the class sizes throughout all grades in Tipton. We don't have, our bus driver has to do 2 to 3 routes right now because we don't have enough. So I don't know how we're going to support all these families without doing some major infrastructural improvements. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
My name is Joy Mitchell, and I live at 1824 South 300 West. My concerns are not as well put together as my predecessors, but I have concerns with safety, especially on 300 with the semis. If you have over 350 houses, usually you have at least two cars per house, if not more, with teenagers. And you add that to, and I am here to tell you, I moved there in 2006, and the prevalence of speeders with this 18-wheelers is amazing. They just, and it's all hours of the day and night, and it's not just weekdays, it's weekends also. Now add 700 cars and some inexperienced drivers. and a narrow road that has only not been resurfaced since I've moved there. They've, lined the tar with tar. And now you want to put all these cars in there. I think it's, it's a safety issue. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man.
I'm Keith Martin. I live at 1160 West Jefferson Street.
Martin, you say?
Martin.
Yes, sir.
I've lived there for 60 years. And he was talking about the traffic on 28 being a problem. You better check, like he said, Jefferson Street, because there is 300 or 400 semis every day in and out of Pioneer. Goes by there every day. Winter and summer, all year long. It's not just a seasonal thing, it's all the time. And I am totally against if they do anything over there, there should never be an entrance or exit on the Jefferson Street because of the semi traffic more than anything. Plus the workers that work there at Pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, when they get off work, they're in a hurry to get home. And but I'm totally against it for that reason. He talked about the traffic on 28 being that.
Mm-hmm.
They better check Jefferson Street also, because that's very much traveled by semis all the time.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Hi, I'm Abby Ritberger. I live at 134 Columbia Avenue. Like Matt Cook mentioned, I don't live anywhere really near this development. I am a business owner in town, so you would think I would stand up here and beg you guys to add 400 new homes, because that only, at the end of the day, is great for my business. But like the gentleman said earlier, I have to say no right now, because I have sat in city council meetings for over a year at this point, and I have heard our fire department and our police department beg, and I mean beg, borrow, and steal to be able to staff appropriately. I know that some of you in here have been at those meetings. I know that some of you are have employees, your family members are employed by those institutions. I don't know if you know this, but our maximum, I've heard Chief Bittner stand up here and say that our maximum staff at our fire department, and I mean every single person, not on vacation, not at a doctor's appointment for their children, every single person who is employed by that fire department on staff is the minimum number of people recommended for a town of our size as it stands today. Minimum. Those are live streamed, you can pull it up, it's there, that's the truth. We have had an application out for how many weeks to bring folks here to the fire department? So if you could probably tell me. No one is applying. Do you know why? Because our benefits aren't there. I understand that we need growth to be able to increase our tax base, to be able to pay these folks. I get it. I need that growth to be able to pay my mortgage every single month. But there are so many questions left unanswered. I don't care, truthfully, about Mr. Bowman's view. I'm really sorry. It's not my view. I don't care. I care about the safety of my child. When we're talking about traffic, you see the scar on my neck? That's because I was recently hit by a teenage driver head on who crossed the center line, who was texting and driving. My whole life has changed, my whole entire life, because there was it was at an intersection that isn't appropriately marked for its size. Too much traffic in such a tiny space, right by a school zone. I have a 9-year-old who is in a class of 30 children at Tipton, and he is not a neurotypical kid. He requires additional resources that Tipton does not have. And while I understand that the funding follows our students immediately, staff does not. And if you I talk to staff members at our school every single day because I have a child that requires that. And they're leaving, they're not coming. His class size is the size that it is because they lost a 4th grade teacher and they didn't replace it. I want growth for Tipton. I desperately want growth for Tipton. I don't care whose land it's on. I don't care who benefits from it. I don't care what people's views are, but I have to beg you that all of these questions need to be answered before we say yes. Additionally, I know the city council doesn't have to listen to what you say, and I've already had city council members personally reach out to me and tell me that they're voting in favor, which is a little disheartening to know that there's people in our community who would refuse to listen to this before they would make a decision. I hope that's not you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Bitberger.
Mark Purvis, I live 1948 South, 300 West. I'm gonna say ditto to everybody so far, with the exception, I'm not totally opposed to everything, but I would like to have it planned and executed correctly. My bullets is like the traffic. I think there's needing at least 2 roundabouts, one at Jefferson and one at 300 to handle the traffic. There's gonna be maybe 1,000 people living there. We need shelter. We're in a tornado area. We're 700 people, 800 people are gonna go if severe weather occurs. There should be a facility planned for that number of people in case of severe weather. I think there's not enough green space in what they've planned. They've got their lots too tight. There's gonna be too many kids living in that area, but nothing to do. So I'm requesting that you increase the lot sizes and the number of houses, decrease the number of houses. Thinking about the kids on the east side of town having to walk on 28 to come into town. There's not gonna be any way for kids to walk into town from this side. So Tipton needs to plan on bike paths and walkways for pedestrians to get into town. So that I'd like to have. Another thing is, this is an economic opportunity for our community. Can we put statutes in there where they have so many people working to build this addition if it ever gets approved? Local hires. I think that would be a benefit to our community. And lastly, the schools. That's going to require 6 additional buses and drivers to get those kids to school. There's nobody here from the school corporation addressing this concern. I mean, it's going to be a huge impact on the schools. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis.
Hello, I am Erin Bowman, Mike's wife, from 2544 West State Road 28. I have a few objections to this. You know, as my husband stated, it does not align with the comprehensive plan. I personally do not feel it's safe. Our child started school last year, and we got a phone call from the head of the school bus system saying they will not stop at our house because it is unsafe. And yet you want to add an access to a whole neighborhood right along there when school buses won't stop to pick up my son because it's unsafe. How is putting a neighborhood entrance with more cars going in and out going to be any safer? I'd also like you to consider the fact that after they submitted their first proposal, the planning department did write back to Mr. Russell with some comments and concerns and things to address. I looked over that email or letter he sent them, and I looked over the new plan they responded with. They did not really comply with many of the points that Steve asked them to. Steve asked for, said, the plan department will require 2 12-foot travel lanes for 24-foot pavement. If parking is to be on one side, then there is required an additional 10 feet parking lane for 34-foot pavement. Parking on one side is the preferred street width layout. In their plan, they have 30 feet. That's 10 feet per lane. I don't know about you, but 4 feet makes a big difference, especially when you look at the kids. They also were told that mailboxes need to be on the opposite side of the street from parking. In their plan, it states that mailboxes will be on the same side as assigned parking. Which means if someone happens to park in front of your mailbox, because that's the only place they have, you're not getting your mail. Because our mail carriers can't get to the mailbox. I'd also like to point out that they were told that the plan department would not support a 5-foot setback with a 12-foot aggregate. They said they would support 7-foot setback. In their new plan, after they received this, they maintained the 5-foot setback. They did not change to the 7-foot setback. They maintained the 5-foot setback. I'd also like clarification as to where this walking path is going to go and whose backyard it's going to be from. Because I know I don't want to look out my back door and see groups of people walking by, waving at me as I'm sitting in my family room. Because I have a huge window, because when my house was built, it was built in a way to, embrace the picturesque nature outside, not to block off our neighbors' going on. Excuse me. I'm not quite as eloquent as my husband. I'd also like to point out that they do not actually have the greatest track record of quality. They may say they're great, but I have over 60 complaints filed to the Better Business Bureau in the past 3 years alone, complaining to them about the quality of Arbor Homes and their lack of customer support. I have an article from Call 6 complaining about Arbor Homes. I found a lawsuit in which Arbor Homes hired a subcontractor, which is normal, to hook up the plumbing for a house that was under construction. Nobody checked to make sure that that plumbing was hooked to the city sewer system. Arbor Homes continued building this home and handed over the keys to the people that bought it, for those people to move in and then notice a smell in their home as their crawl space filled with sewage. Who's to say that's not going to happen again? Who's going to say they're not going to skip the essential points of inspection of homes in our town? I can't.
Well,
Honestly-
none of us can project out that way, and I appreciate your points, but like all municipalities, we have an inspection process in place.
And who's going to say they're not going to push through so fast that you guys can't get out there?
Well, we have to trust our resources on that. I mean,
I'm sure that this town trusted their resources too,
and then obviously a grievous error, so.
which
We
Arbor-
can't project, I will not allow you to project out maybes on
Okay.
that, all right?
Well, I would like to state that Arbor Homes did not take responsibility for that incident. They then turned around and sued the subcontractor. They have sued towns and cities because the towns realized the shoddy workmanship going into the homes and come around saying, we expect better. Arbor Homes then turned around and sued Greenwood. What's to keep them from doing that to us? We are a small town. What would that do to us? I don't believe that holding ourselves to higher standards is a bad thing. Not settling for basic and minimal, that's not a bad thing. We should strive to do better, strive for better. I agree that we need growth, but growth is best when it comes naturally and it's not forced. Growth is good in certain situations with the right people in the right time and in the right areas with sufficient information. We don't have that. You have not been given enough time to do research on this. You have not been given enough time to get all of the facts. You don't have all the facts. You still have questions, I'm sure. This should not move forward. I am against this.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Brad Nichols. I live at 2454 West State Road 28. So my property would back up to this proposed subdivision. I am opposed to the zoning change as presented. So I think there needs to be a little work done on it. And in saying that, I think it's exciting that we have a possibility of having some growth. I understand that the community needs growth in order to live. I think this is, as far as Tipton and the county, this is a great place to live, to raise a family, and we can drive to work because we all have that ability. So how do we make this a place where people want to live and raise their families? So the pieces that have been brought up thus far concerning the different things, the traffic, the schools, the population, I think those are all valid points, and they need to be looked at, and they need to be looked and discussed and vetted as far as how do we see those issues. My issues are basically a couple, and density is probably my biggest issue. 338, 339 homes, that's a lot of structures in that area. If you do both sides, if you don't do the south side, maybe that's a little different issue. But the original plan submitted is different slightly from what you're looking at tonight. And in that, each parcel, each property size was slightly increased. In that, the streets were widened, even though not maybe to the width that was discussed earlier. But we have a little bit more property on each parcel, and we have a little bit bigger street, and somehow in that math, we've added a home. So I don't know how the original plan with the smaller lots and smaller streets, we add size to the lots, and we widen the streets, and we're able to get an extra home in the new plan. So that math is kind of perplexing, but that's what it shows. So the two different layouts the original had 338 homes in layout A. The one that's in your plan now, layout B, has 339. A lot of the issues in the original proposal, I appreciate the planning department and the committee looking at and addressing them. And I think they've made a lot of improvements, but I'm not to the point where I think it's enough. I think personally, the lot size needs to be a little bigger. If you looked at this parcel in the town, most of the standard lots, if you took 1/4 of a block, if they had 3 parcels, they're 66 feet wide, they're 198 feet deep. That's the standard. This building, this parcel from Jefferson Street to the back alley, not the utility office, but this parcel is 66 by 198. That's 13,000 square feet. We're looking at 7,200 square feet in the proposal. So maybe if somebody doesn't want to mow their backyard, that's fine. But I'm thinking that maybe we want to have a little bit bigger parcel. And with that comes the issue of how close are the homes? Because maybe I don't want to mow the backyard, but I'm not wanting to hand a cup of sugar across to the neighbor. So we need a little bit more space between these homes. The proposed 15 feet is if you don't have a third garage. If you have a third garage, then it could only be 10 feet. It could be 15 feet, but then maybe it's 10. If your neighbor wants a third garage, then maybe it's 10. So I'm thinking it needs to be standard. Is it 15 feet or not? You know, how far is 15 feet? Anybody shoot a free throw? How far is a free throw? 15 feet. So your neighbor, if you're in these homes, is a free throw away. So I'm thinking, again, 20 feet, is that okay? It's something I think that needs to be looked at. So the way we're looking at the proposal in front of you, I think still has some issues. One of the communities that voted to not allow the arbor development, that proposal on that table was 60 feet of width for the parcel. Ours is 55. What you're looking at, the lot width is 55. So this community declined arbors. They're not building there, and they have two other builders that came in behind that discussed 70-foot lots, 70 foot of width. So you're not next to your neighbor. So once again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have homes, we shouldn't have growth, but why don't we do it right? Because we have one time to do this. So in my opinion, yes, we need to have homes. There's been a huge identification of workforce housing that needs to happen. This is a great community to live in. I think we should try to keep it in that capacity where people want to move here, they want to live here. That's probably a good location. You know, when you think logically, it's close to town, but we need the sidewalks, we need the traffic study, we need these pieces in place before we can say it makes sense. And the two things, again, that I just think are paramount, the lot size, the density of the homes, 338 or 339, however you want to look at it, that's too many homes in that total, and the space between them is not enough. So if we're going to do it in the ordinance, if we're going to rezone, let's make it where I understand the developer wants a house on every inch. What's the community want? I think we want a nice place for people to live that are going to come to the community and live. So that's my opinion.
One clarification, Brad, is this is not establishing a protocol going forward for anything else.
Nope.
So this is strictly for this planned unit development.
Right.
Okay. I thought okay. I want to make sure we're all clear on that. This is strictly for this development.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment in opposition?
I'm Andy Westner. I live at 2634 West State Road 28. I highly oppose this. I live at the corner, so to the west of me, I will have a house, a trail, and a road. And behind me, I'll have a trail and a pond. I'm all for growth for the city, for the county, but I feel like bringing an HOA type place like this and those homes definitely will not work. You guys got a lot of work to do before you just throw this in here. And like I've agreed with everybody that's come before me and all my neighbors, you guys got a lot of work to do.
My name is Brad Whitman. I live at 224 Taft Street. I'm a restoration contractor for insurance claims. I work on Arbor Homes weekly. The biggest thing that I see with Arbor Homes, every house that they build has discontinued products as they are building it. All their siding and roofing is discontinued. It's the cheapest material out there. So every time I go to a house that's got a storm claim, we're automatically replacing siding, roofing, windows that are discontinued because they store it all in large quantities in warehouses. So we're not able to find the product to do repairs, so we just have to replace everything on the outside of them. I've also done interior work on Arbor Homes, and I've found studs that aren't nailed, inadequate headers for doorways and windows. I've found exterior walls with no insulation in the walls. And then when the homeowners call for warranty claims, Arbor Homes does nothing. I know that for a fact. My dad owns an Arbor Home, and he hates it. And then, you know, on top of that, you know, the city needs to look at building all these homes. How is the building commissioner's office going to handle all these homes being built when the proper channels aren't being followed with regards to code and everything that's being done in the city now? I've seen probably multiple different code violations from builders over on Wilson Street that was never addressed or brought to anybody's attention. And I think we need to we need to change that before we try to go 300 plus homes in the city. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Very good.
Hi, my name is Trent Wheeler. I live at 2596 West State Road, 28. I have a 3-year-old and a wife. I respectfully oppose this addition, changing this from agricultural to residential. Our road, I know it's been mentioned, traffic, but I will word it different. I will not word it differently. I will word my opinion differently. The traffic is already quite a hassle. We have a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, but we already have people screaming by at 75, 80 miles an hour. We've been in our home since April of 2018. I know most of the neighbors close to me. I grew up on 17 acres with quarter-mile driveway, and this is what we ended up with because we really, really wanted to have a country life. I try to help all my neighbors as much as I can when it comes to if they need snow moved or if they need a hand at all. So the traffic, if it gets any worse, would definitely hinder that because my 3-year-old will come with me. It's already hard enough to cross the road. You have to run across the road. It was around 2002, 2005, I'm not sure of the exact year. It was around the early 2000s. There was a car traveling way, way, way too fast on 28, and it spun and slammed right into the garage of our house before I even owned the house. And this was with cleaner driving back then. Now we have texting and driving. We have all kinds of distractions. You would not believe it. So, as far as what I do for a living, I actually work 2 jobs. I'm a full-time mechanic. I've been a truck mechanic for 10 years, and I am a part-time truck driver on all agricultural products. From what I can tell you, it's already been mentioned that if we added a roundabout, it would fix the situation. That's simply not true. The roundabouts that I've seen built and that I've had to drive through are far too dangerous for trucks as it is. And they just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So even if they added a roundabout, it would not be enough because, people have mentioned there's 100 or 300 or 500 trucks going through Pioneer. That is true. That's very, very true. I can see them all day, all night. I can hear them. I can hear somebody going over the intercom at Pioneer on the pitch dark nights. I can hear it. The thing is that we have Red Gold, we have Chrysler, we have a huge number of trucking companies right here, and they stick to 28. They don't drive down Division. They don't drive down 100. They don't drive down any other east or west road. They use 28 to get all the way to 69 or 37. It's crazy the amount of trucks that we have already. And as people have said, they're not going 50. They're going 60, 70. We have had near collisions where we've tried to turn into our driveway coming from 31. It's not been allowed by a truck behind us. And this is coming from someone that respectfully drives a truck for a living. So I can just tell you that the traffic's not going to work. So something needs to be done with that. And something needs to be done with it as it is. Moving on, something definitely needs to be done with the utilities because the electrical would not be enough. The lines, everything. We just added that solar field. I have no problem with that. However, 338, 340 houses, our house is all natural gas, every appliance, even the dryer. So we have a 100 amp breaker. These houses are going to have a 200 amp breaker or 300 amp breaker if they have that bigger house, 3-car garage or whatever. Also, we have currently a lot of people starting to drive electric cars, Teslas, whatever it may be. You have to have a very high service to be able to charge your car. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just making the point that something would have to be done far additional to the electrical utilities. But that's basically what I have to say. I'm not going to repeat anything that anyone else has said. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Here's your chance.
Is there a chance that I could explain why there's a variance and the PUD is being considered instead of the restrictions and planning that we already have?
Well, we will get into that once we have a chance to discuss it as a commission, but it's not, there is a PUD development standard in our zoning. That's a zoning standard. So it's been done before. And it is part of our ordinances.
So what was the variances? What is that about? Well, I'm just wondering.
Well, we will get into that, okay?
Okay. How will I see that?
Well, if you stay for the meeting, we'll talk about it.
Oh, okay.
All right. Does anybody else want to object to this? And then we will move to the next step.
My name's Ken Summers, live at 202 Park Road, Tipton.
Summers?
Summers, SUMMERS. Not sure if I'm on the right side here, opposed or against. Either way, it's going to be what it is. One of the things I would like to express is that extreme diligence must be taken when you go to developing any land around Tipton. We have a tendency to be very much flood prone. There's a lot of changes about, a lot of different things are happening all across the county. These all affect people on the downstream side. The subservient landowners are the ones that will pay the price for any mishaps in engineering development. We all know, even though they may be rare, that engineering disasters do happen. And we could be setting ourselves up for something of this nature, especially if you happen to think that we are under the conditions where we can get larger amounts of rainfall for longer periods of time. Retention ponds aren't always the best answer to flood control or even erosion prevention. They come with their own sets of pitfalls. Everything is tied to something else. So I would just like to say, really look into things, because what may look good on paper and seems to be infallible is not necessarily that way when applied in the real world. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Any other comments? Mr. Wyatt?
Thank you, Wyatt Johnson, 637 Buttonwood Boulevard. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer. And over the last 35 or 40 years, I've designed some subdivisions that are very similar to this one. One I had in Coconut recently had 31 lots in phase 1 and 35 lots in phase 2. So it's not as big as what's being proposed here tonight. But they didn't have a trail. They didn't have any playgrounds. They didn't really have any open space except for stormwater detention area or retention area. I don't really know Arbor Homes real well, but from what I do know, they're as good a tract builder as there is. I'm familiar with some of the others. There's one that built houses in Atlanta and over here in Wilson Street, and they are at the bottom. So you don't want to kick Arbor out in order to get somebody worse. So I guess that means I'd like to see you negotiate with them and try to get something that's good for the city and something that works for them. I like what Mr. Nichols said. I like what Mr. Summers said. I don't know where the lot width makes their project non-viable, but I like the bigger lots. My thought before I came up here, before I listened to people, was that it would be nice, since I opened up the can of worms of a planned unit development rather than just rezoning, now you can negotiate some things. So, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I just want to throw it out for you to think about. You know, maybe the streets could be 30 feet wide. In return, maybe they would say, we will do X% of the houses with no vinyl or with windows on the sidewalks. So that's just something. So I think Mr. Summers said it. You might want to take some time to maybe have a technical review meeting again to come up with some of these terms that you can negotiate. I remember seeing a sign, I think it was in the auditor's office, that said Tipton County population 44,000. Now, I've never been able to verify whether that's right or not. But when I think about how could that be, I think, well, in the 1800s, there was one family for 40 acres. If you take all of our land and divide it up into 40-acre parcels, that's a lot of families. And they had a lot of kids. So it makes sense that their population was that big. Didn't have cars, didn't have semi-trucks, you didn't have that kind of traffic. But the population was that big. We had a shoe store, we had a women's dressing store, had all sorts of local establishments and businessmen that were able to thrive. And that's not changed just in Tipton, that's changed because of Walmart and all that kind of stuff. But even if that hadn't happened, we couldn't support that. Now we support 2 hardware stores, somehow 2 automotive supply stores. Maybe that's because of all the trucking that they talk about. The comprehensive plan, I believe, was done in Mayor Haven's term early. So that was about 8 or 9 years ago. It's supposed to be redone about every 5 years. Doesn't happen in most places. Not to be critical of the plan commission here, because I was on the plan commission long enough to have started the revised comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan is supposed to be a living document. So the must in the comprehensive plan, I haven't read the phrase that the gentleman was talking about, but I think I know that it doesn't mean you can't do something that's different than what the comprehensive plan says. There were several comments about, you don't know enough about it yet. They're too far ahead of the plan. The concept generally is you do your rezoning before you spend, in this case, maybe $150,000, $200,000, maybe $300,000, because it's going to be a difficult project on engineering. You don't want to spend that money on engineering to answer all these kind of questions and then get turned down on your zoning. So the requirements are in place. We know that the road right of way is going to be a certain width. The road is going to be a certain width once this PUD is approved or not. The houses are going to be required to be set back so far once this is approved. So you know all these details. It's a matter of putting the puzzle together. And that's what they've got to do if the PUD is approved. Ponds generally make drainage a lot better. I've seen it over and over again. It's amazing.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Ponds make drainage better. They make good drained areas out of swamps. The big Cicero Creek technical standards will be reviewed by Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, now known as BF&S, in Indianapolis. And they have a good hydraulics engineer there. He'll make sure, he's reviewed my plans before, so I know that he'll make sure that they comply with the big Cicero Creek technical standards. They will be allowed to release, well, before the big Cicero Creek technical standards went into effect, they were allowed to release the 10-year storm on farm ground before, which would be before development, during the 100-year storm developed. So once it's developed, there's a lot more hard surface and roofs, roads, sidewalks, etc. So it runs off faster. They used to be allowed to release it at a 10-year rate, which I can't give you a number that would be. I think part of the reason that was changed is because you can fudge that a little bit. It's hard. There's a lot of engineering judgment coming up with that number. So now the number is 0.3 cubic feet per second per acre. That doesn't mean anything to you guys, but this might. It's 135 gallons per minute per acre. If you got a sump pump, if you got a basement or a crawl space with a sump pump in it, it probably pumps about 15 to 20 gallons per minute. So you're talking about now your house versus a third of an acre, or an acre, which is 43,000 square feet instead of 2,000. And you can only release 135 gallons per minute in the 100-year storm. So that's what they've got it designed to. I noticed in their plan, even though it was on an 8.5 by 11 page and hard to see, well, not hard to see, but hard to see the detail. They didn't appear to do any development in the floodway, which they can't do without a permit from DNR. And they kept their stormwater storage ponds outside of the floodplain, it looks like, which they have to do. They can't put their stormwater storage in the floodplain, in the flood fringe. So they've done their planning on that. Schools need more students. The schools get, one of the things that you're supposed to consider is what's the impact on schools. So assuming that you continue this, you might want to check with the schools and say, are you in favor of this? What's it going to do for you? Is it going to hurt you? Is it going to make you have more low and free and what's the word? Subsidized lunches? Or is it going to give you more money for all your different categories? 35 years ago or more, former Mayor Havens, who wasn't mayor at the time, was a good friend of mine, and Ron Warren was a home builder. We talked frequently about what was then called the Shortle Farm, which is this property, being an ideal place to develop. So, I think Mayor Havens was kind of wise. Ron Warren was pretty wise. I think it's a good place for development. One thing I'd like to see you change is if you allow the 20-foot setback for the homes, which I really kind of like. I think the garages ought to set back 25 feet or 24 feet, because if you park two cars, well, if you park one car in the driveway, you're almost in the sidewalk. So I don't think you want that. The Monon Trail runs through Carmel. I don't know if you guys know what they call it. They call it beachfront property. If you're on the Monon Trail, that's beachfront property. That's their term for it because it's so valuable. I thought I was going to look at the subdivision approval ordinance, but it's not on the document page on the website, on the city website. But I think it requires a lot of open space. So that's something that when they get to that phase, they're not there now. When they get to that phase, that's something you're going to want to look at to make sure that they provide the open space. And if they provide playgrounds and the retention ponds, they're probably gonna meet that. And all the developments I've done that are similar to this have 30-foot streets. They don't restrict parking. There's 2 parking spaces in every driveway, if not 3 or 4. There's 2 parking spaces in every garage. I know a lot of garages get full of junk and you can't really park in there. But I don't see a problem with parking and mailboxes on 30-foot wide streets. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing it be a 28-foot street, back-to-back occur. Early in Mayor Haven's term, he commissioned a study of the intersection of Wilson and Jefferson. I don't remember who the engineer was that did it, wasn't me. But they determined there really wasn't a good answer. I think they were constrained by not being able to buy that building that used to be standing down, it's just now, it wasn't monument place, and I don't know what it is now. So I think in order to make that intersection better, somebody may have to buy that building and tear it down. I think Buttonwood Field was the right development at the right time by the right people, mainly because I was one of the people. But it hasn't made a dent in our loss of population. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
My name is Keaton Summers. I live at 202 Park Road, and I haven't signed the sheet. I will need the pen for that. And I oppose this addition. Echoing the points, they've definitely gone into the details on this, both of the questionable construction, the flood concerns, and just the general layout of the place. But I would like to take a step back and look at the total cost of ownership, if you will, of this. Who does it benefit at this time? Sure, the person selling the field, they get some money. Arbor Homes building them, they get some money. Even some local construction may get a little bit of business out of it. But at the end of the day, does Tipton benefit? I'm 28 years old. I've been born and raised in this town. And I've grown up on the idea of Tipton is the charming little bird. We have pictures of our courthouse. We have the small town festivals. That is our charm. Will we lose that if we bring these homes in? In my 28 years time, I've seen a lot of businesses come and go throughout the city. I've seen a little bit of growth. I've seen a little bit of subtraction in that. I think this town has a lot of potential in its side streets. We often talk about walking trails and how awesome they are, and babbling brooks and such. If anybody's walked the sidewalks of this town, they are questionable at best. If we look at the bridge right by the South Pole that most of our students walk across daily, there is a large hole, a trip hazard. Kind of surprised that hasn't been fixed yet. There is some work being done down there. There's some more sidewalks being developed. So in conclusion, I would just say, who benefits from this? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out right now. But look at the total cost of this, and at the end of the day, will 300 and some odd cookie cutter houses benefit the small feel of our town? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summers.
I could say something.
Very good.
Mike Terry, 3563 North, 200 West, Sharpsville. I come to you as the Public Works Manager for the city this evening. I will tell you that I have been involved since our original department head meeting. I've been involved in negotiations between the city and Arbor Homes. I'd like to share a little bit of that with you. One thing that was talked about was sidewalks. One area of concern that the city did have was off-site sidewalks. You know, with 300 new homes going in, how do we get them access to our downtown area? I will say that Arbor Homes stepped up to the plate and is willing and committed to providing that off-site sidewalk, providing that the city provides them right of way. It was stated earlier that the mailboxes and the parking will be on the same side of the street. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that is another item that we spoke with Arbor Homes about. And the parking and the mailboxes will be on opposing sides of the street. The street widths were discussed with Arbor Homes. And as any negotiations go, you work back and forth to see what's going to be acceptable to both parties. And Arbor Homes did work with the city, and I believe they ended up with a 30-foot street width that is asphalt outside. That means the curbs will go on the outside of that. They also upped their game on the street right of way, and I don't have that number in front of me. I believe it's 52 feet right of way, which would allow for the 4 foot of grass strip and 5 foot sidewalks. Traffic has been mentioned, traffic both on 300 West, the intersection at Jefferson and State Road 28. Speed of traffic on State Road 28 has been mentioned, and the intersection at 300 West has been mentioned. I will assure you that all of those items have been discussed amongst the city officials, myself included. There are discussions underway to figure out how we fix those problems. Now, those problems are already there. Traffic's too fast already. The truck traffic coming from Pioneer is not created by Arbor Homes. However, there will be additional vehicular traffic. So the city and the Public Works Department is committed to studying those intersections, petitioning with NDOT, discussing with NDOT, working with NDOT to change the traffic speeds on State Road 28 and come up with solutions to those interchanges, whether that's roundabouts or something other than a roundabout. But the city officials are committed to that. They brought up the point of the lot sizes. The lot sizes in our old downtown that were platted many, many moons ago, they are 66 feet wide, 190 feet long, whatever that is. However, when we were looking at the lot sizes of 7,200 square feet for this the subdivision, we also looked at some of the lot sizes on that have been platted more recently. I will tell you that some of the more recent platted subdivisions in the city of Tipton, they are less than 7,200 square feet. So, there's a lot of work here on Arbor Homes, on the planning department, on the city departments. There's a lot of work for all of us. And there's money that needs to be spent, okay? So where does that money come from? If we don't grow, we still have the traffic issues that we've all discussed. They don't get any better. However, if we do grow, that is a revenue stream to help fund some of these intersection issues, some of the traffic problems. We're looking at property tax on 300 homes. We're looking at income tax from potentially 2 working people per home. We also are looking at lit tax, and that is a huge impact on our community. And I know that has nothing to do with our rezone, but when we look at it's hard to find help in the city street department. It's hard to find help with the city police department. It's hard to find help with the fire department. The reason it's difficult is we don't have the funding that our communities to the south have. Developments like this will assist with that funding and help us advance in our needs of funding rather than continuing to cut budgets year after year. I have personally friends that have left this community. They like Tipton, but they moved away from here to raise a family so that they could live in a community, a developed community that had walking trails, that had the playgrounds, that had the small yards that they didn't have to come home and maintain daily. Those friends moved away from Tipton. I wish they were still here. It's not fair for us to use other communities' opinions about an organization such as Arbor Homes to decide whether a rezone of this caliber fits our community. I can't tell you why somebody doesn't like them. It's just an opinion. We all have those. I think the time is right. I think Tipton needs growth. I think Tipton deserves the added revenue that growth will bring. And I think the area fits the city of Tipton well. It's right at the edge of Tipton. Utilities are there. As far as the street department, public works department, we can accept this subdivision without a lot of additional expenses. We are ready. So the mayor's still here, don't put that against me. So I guess at the end of the day, I'm telling you that as public works manager for the city of Tipton, I am supportive of the rezone and of the PUD. Arbor Homes has been good to work with as we go through negotiations. And my opinion is that we've got building standards, we've got a building department that protects us against a stud not getting nailed and all of that stuff. That's a whole different issue other than that doesn't have anything to do with the rezone. So I would recommend approval of the rezone and PUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Chance for further comments?
Tom Bilzel, Mayor. Arbor Homes has been nothing but professional and helpful in everything we've requested of them. A lot of folks have said that the lot sizes are possibly too small. I think financially, their investment will determine whether they're too small. Mr. Terry brought out the point that they're actually larger lots that they've pledged to than a number of the developments that we have previously approved. I think it's a great product, and I would encourage you to help with bringing this growth to the community. Thank you.
Jim Ankrum, Tipton Utilities, 1603 South Main Street is where I live. Want to address a couple things. So I served on the school board for 8 years, and I didn't see many people, a few friendly faces, but I can tell you we've lost population. My term on the board ended last December, but my 8 years, we saw the decline in the graduating class, probably went from 150, 160 down to I think 120 kids now. So I think the schools would, again, I'm speaking from my own opinion and not the school board, but I think the schools would be in favor of bringing families and children to the community. For them to do programs, to hire teachers, to increase wages, any headcount, that's how they're incentivized. So from that standpoint, I think you get an affirmative from the school board. On the utility front, I wanted to mention that the gentleman that mentioned the electrical, we have three-phase power surrounding this area, running along Jefferson Street, 300, and even 28. As some of you know, we purchase our power from Indiana Municipal Power Agency, IMPA, and I've already talked to them about this development, and they would do a study on our existing power out there, and it's very high voltage and it's three-phase, and they would help us determine the course of action to get that high voltage power down and through the neighborhood, and the power would go underground through the neighborhood. So there wouldn't be a lot of power poles and go down and under and then service the homes, much like we see out at Buttonwood now. So power, not concerned. We have water right there at the county jail. When that was developed, we extended our water lines. I have a preliminary study from our consulting engineer on the water. We have plenty of capacity, I should also mention, for water and sewage. Our wastewater plant out by Needlers is running about 1/2 capacity right now, so we can take on more customers. I'm pretty sure we've lost customers through the years, as well as the student population I mentioned. So water's right there. I will say sanitary might be a challenge because we have sanitary nearby the jail, but we're not sure if we can accept any or a portion of the new development. But those kinds of details can be worked out, and I'm confident we can come up with solutions. And what that does from a revenue standpoint, we haven't raised electrical rates here in Tipton since, I want to say 2004, is what I've been told. Now, as we purchase power and those rates go up, we all have to pay for that. It's just a general rate increase. That hasn't happened in nearly 20 years on the electrical. I know there was a water rate increase a couple years ago, and there hasn't been a sewage rate increase in many years. And our rates are very, very competitive with everybody in the state and especially surrounding communities. So that's another attractive benefit by adding customers. And I think you guys need to decide if it's 338 or the lot sizes need to grow. I think there's some consideration based on what Mr. Nichols said that ought to be taken under advisement. But we could sure benefit as a community with additional ratepayers and then not having to increase on the rest of us. So just wanted to offer that opinion. Clearly, I'm in favor of a controlled growth, and also mention that 338 homes aren't going to pop up next year. They discussed that it's a slow process. I think I've been in meetings where I heard 80 homes potentially in the first year to 2 years. So it's not 338 immediately. Maybe there's language you can put in there after a certain phase as we relook at things and see how did it go? How did the inspection go? What are we not happy about, and what can be fixed? And then we can go to the next phase and help control things in that manner as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anker. Yes, sir.
Mind if I address a few things before we open to questions?
Yes.
My name is Christian Rector. As was mentioned earlier, I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition and Entitlement for Arbor Homes.
Excuse me, what, your last name?
Rector. Before we open it up to questions that I'll mostly let Charles answer, I did just want to address a couple things that were mentioned. One is the quality. We have been in business since 1994. We have built around 20,000 homes. Homes are man-made structures made by imperfect humans. We have never built a perfect one. I don't believe a perfect home has ever been built. In the last 3 years, we've closed around 4,000 homes. So 60 Better Business Bureau complaints. I'm actually quite proud that our customer service scores are above industry average. The mention of the sewage not being connected, sadly that did happen one time. I'm not going to deny it. We offered prior to that lawsuit to repurchase that home from the family, provide them with a place to live until a new home was constructed. They chose to go the legal route instead. Secondly, I appreciate the passion you guys all have brought out tonight. We, as you can imagine, do several of these. It's concerning to me when I go into one of these and there is not passion, because if people don't care about their town, it makes me nervous about whether people are going to want to move there. So I understand we're not always going to see eye to eye on whether growth is good, whether the community we're proposing is good, but I do appreciate that passion. Traffic is mentioned at every single one of those hearings. People live in houses, there are drivers, it is a part of growth, and ultimately we believe growth is a good thing. One of the things that was mentioned was, who does this benefit? And I do want to address that because it is why we at Arbor do what we do. On the second slide Charles had up there on the PowerPoint, you probably barely noticed it, but there were our 5 core values at Arbor. The top 2 up there were opportunity and customers. Those mean multiple things for us. When we talk about opportunity for our employees, who we consider family, which is another one of our core values, but also the families we provide the opportunity of home ownership for. 4 years ago, when we stood up doing these things, we talked about building homes that would sell for $175,000 to $200,000. Arbor was founded as a builder for first-time home buyers. We used to be 90% first-time home buyers. That statistic is now down less than 50% because of the pricing and the challenges of getting ground zoned, getting lots approved, making them forced to be bigger. It was mentioned the project in Cicero that got turned down. One of the things that stuck in my memory from that hearing was a man standing up saying how he had to wait his turn to live in Cicero. He rented outside of Cicero for years until he could afford to live there, and he didn't think our project should be approved because other people should have to do the same thing. When he started talking, I thought he was going to be supporting our project. He's talking about the need for housing that we have. We have a massive housing shortage. We continue to see the cost of home ownership skyrocket. Traditionally in this country, families have built wealth through their homes, and we continue to see people be priced out of the market because of that. That is why we do this. We don't come in here looking to ruin your small town feel. We want to provide the opportunity for people to be welcomed into the community, as some of you said you were. So I just wanted to get up and address that. If you guys have any questions, Charles or I are happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richter. So at this time, I think we are probably done with comments.
I'd ask one more time if anybody.
Are we like an auction?
Anyone?
Anybody? If not, we did not officially open our public hearing. But I will officially close it. So if we are confident that everybody has had a chance to air their feelings and points of view, I would ask a motion from the commission to close the public hearing.
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
We have a motion
I second.
and we have a second. At this time, we'll take this as a voice vote too. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion closes. We're going to take a 5-minute break because I've got to visit the product. I would caution before we have our break, board members, let's keep in mind cognizant of our ex parte communications while we take our, we'll come back at 10 after. Thank you.
You know, can they nap for fights in 8th grade? Bearman said he had 25 points. Is that the tallest? What grade? 8th grade. Is that the tall left? So we used to guard him. We used to go right. He would not. He'd like run out. How'd you guys do that? Did you guys play in that tournament? We went 1-1. Who won? 7th grade? 7th grade. They beat a team. Well, did you know that most of the team they played, they moved their money to 7th grade. They played A and B for 7th grade. So they're well, first part's over there. Yeah. Oh man, it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was. No. It's a police officer. I noticed they're walking around in one almost to show their presence. Mississippi. That's coming out of your wages. Hey, Kristen, Kaylin did lose everything. Kaylin lost everything on her laptop. I can look it up. Yeah, a girl spilled a cup of coffee on her laptop today. So the girl bought her laptop and spent $900. But it's an Apple. Okay, so I thought that stuff got backed up. I used to work for the state a while back, so I get it.
Being on the private side?
Probably on Google Docs and stuff, but not like some of her. I don't think she lost a ton.
I'll bet she could. She probably uses Google Docs.
That's really good. Thank you. She took it to IT and they said he can take it to Apple, and I would think he'd pull a hard drive out.
Better be ready for the grass fire.
No.
I appreciate the concerns about inspections. We have a new inspector. I have not, thankfully. But we hear about them. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that's the ones you hear about. You don't usually hear always about the good ones or the the regular ones. It's the worst ones. Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. No, but I can eat. Yeah. Which are they? Yours?
I think they're here. They are. They've been here forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I put a lot of issues.
What's that? It is.
Be careful with that, because I was on some and it got recalled. Yes, that is your problem, ma'am.
Me and Lindsay don't know what that's like yet.
Then we build a truck out there. And they take out. That's Robert's, the Marvin Roberts.
Our kids? Huh?
My kids don't.
No, colors.
Oh, I don't know.
I think Michigan's. There's a lot of hay in my school.
There were a lot. I think people have
So, can we approve this to be, can they still negotiate the costs?
I believe so. I don't know why not. City council. The planning of it is the next one after.
So we're just
Then it would come back.
mostly.
We're just. That's what I believe.
That's what it's going to do right now. Where it goes from there is where it goes.
No, I do the. I call
I mean, I can imagine, like my best friend lives on the corner, like 328, it was a red brick, but she ended up liking it. And she's an actor, she's like, Michelle, and I'm like, like I didn't buy this house to have a subdivision. Like, it wasn't related.
Right.
There was a line for the bathroom.
Was there?
Just so you know.
All right.
So
We need to wait.
It's not our.
That's some powerful gavel there, Jim.
It's hot in here.
Open windows.
No.
No. Probably not.
Probably should have stepped up there for a little bit.
I have to go to write the check for payroll.
All right, let's, in the hopes to keep this moving along a little bit. Let's reconvene. This is now the time to take a board action and discuss the Canal Run Plan Unit Development District Ordinance as presented by Arbor Homes. As a board, as a commission, we may recall, we may ask pointed questions to Arbor Homes. We may ask some of the mayor. Whatever can suffice us to answer the questions that we are after. Remember, what we are looking for is a favorable, a not favorable, or a no decision. I might add that we could as well do favorable with comments. And if need be, do not be afraid to think that we could table a decision if we need more information. Those are all within the realms of what we could discuss and talk about. I think also, as a note of clarity, it needs to be stated publicly, even though I am the chairperson of this committee, I am a non-voting member. So the decision will be your guys's, but believe me, I'm not shy. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions as well. So how I guess I would like to start with is, before we jump right into the plan, I would like to just do another rehash like Director Niblick about the plan unit development, the 6.0 board development requirements within our ordinance. As part of our packet, I ask that those be sent out. These are contained in our city zoning ordinances. We all have these, okay? That it's important to remember that in essence, what we are talking about is a rezoning. It's a rezoning for a particular area. It establishes a PUD area, a PUD for this particular area with underlying performance standards, I guess would be a good way of stating it. So these are all pieces of our ordinances that are in place that have been done before, and now we're tasked with taking the next step, looking at the resources we have. So that being said, I think I would be open to how you would like to start this. To me, I have my district ordinance that they've presented fairly marked up, and I for myself want several things answered. So feel free to jump in when you have a comment, but just flipping through the pages right off the bat, the one that I had right off the bat is I seen the number of homes jump around several times from 339 to, I think one place had it at 343. Yeah, 343.
Bottom page 4, 342.
Okay. 342. So that is one question I have. Could you explain that? Either one of you?
Yeah, we can both be up here, but as has been mentioned several times, we're in the very preliminary stages of this. We have a concept plan put together by our engineers based on the boundary, but as we get into the design phase, we will almost certainly lose lots, but that's the concept plan shows 339. We have a few extra in the PUD so that it's a moving target this early in the stage. It's 3 extra. If we need to take it down to 339, that's fine. But we have the standard lot width and those minimums that we're committing to and would not be changed.
Couldn't go below those. Yeah. Right. Very good. I understand. I think it's important to understand it is a moving target. There's nothing at this stage by our ordinances that lock you guys in except the overall concept of this area, this legal description under these specifics, the lot size, the house size, the minimum height or maximum heights, things of that nature. Maybe I'm making too fine a point of that. But okay. And actually, my next question, again, I don't want to dominate this conversation. If anybody else has any, please feel free. But this would be for David. On section 2, David has, this sounds like legalese to me, and it definitions. Capitalized terms not otherwise defined in this ordinance shall have the meanings ascribed to them in the subdivision and development ordinance. Could you put that in layman's terms, and are you comfortable with that verbiage?
In layman's terms, It's, if there are definitions in this ordinance, you signal things that are carry a definition if they're a capitalized term. If it's an ordinary term that's not capitalized, it's just using ordinary usage. If it has a capitalization, like single-family dwellings, that's a term that means either it's going to be, if it's not defined in this ordinance that they're proposing, it will have the meanings that the city of Tipton uses. But I mean, my preference, and it's a drafting preference, it's just, I would have our ordinances more precisely defined. Instead of it saying subdivision and development ordinance, I would say city of Tipton zoning ordinance and the city of Tipton subdivision control ordinance.
Okay. Okay.
And that was also with section 6 on page 7, that language would also be there.
Okay. Very good. Okay, I got this one, I got this one. So driving right into some of the meats and potatoes of this, on page 4, number 4, front yard setback. Am I on the right? No.
Page 5. Page 5.
Okay, my bad. Page 5, number 4. Front yard setback. Minimum front yard setback will be 20 feet from the street right of way. I'd like to, when I was looking at this and dissecting it, looking at our ordinances, and I know a PUD is a separate entity, but I found it by lot size and permitted uses to be very similar to our R1 classification, and more particularly to our R2. And our R2 classification has this, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Niblick, would be requiring 25 feet.
That's what I'm looking up.
And again, I know that you're not trying to go to an R2, you're trying to go to a PUD, but what some explanation, some some detail. I think there was a good comment made earlier. I think 20 could be a little shy if you try to put a car in the driveway.
When we widen the streets and expand the right of way a little bit, it did push into this. Initially, we had some extra right of way that would have gone into the front yard. So the 20 foot would have been very similar to 25. But now that we widen the streets, I'm fine going to 25. That makes sense.
Okay.
When we widen the streets, we really didn't widen the actual right of way very much. I phrased that poorly. So you had excess right of way. So we now do need to probably push the driveway back a little bit and go to the 25-foot setback.
So just so we're clear, and I'm making sure that what I heard you say is that page 5, number 4, the front yard setback, you think you could go to 25 feet?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Again, with nobody else asking, I'll just keep asking away here. So.
We're letting you go through your list. Yes.
A side yard setback. First of all, I would like to know, can you give me, or Director Niblick, explain to me what we're talking about when we dumb it down and tell me what I'm talking about on a side yard setback. What's that mean when I'm looking at a house side by side? What's aggregate mean? What could you give me a tutorial on side yard setback.
I'm gonna let them
Very
kick
good.
it off.
Very good.
The minimum side yard setback is a distance from the edge of the structure to the property line. When we start talking about aggregate, we're talking about the distance between the buildings. Our standard product is a 40-foot wide home. So on a 55 minimum wide lot, you have 15 extra foot there. If the home's centered, you got 7.5 on both sides. That then allows you to have 15 between buildings. When we talk about reducing it to 10, that 40 foot does not include a 4-foot bump out on the garage to allow for extra storage, which is one of the more popular options. Allows people to store things in the garage, still park cars in there. So that's when we start for garage bump outs, reducing it to 10 foot. We gain that ability to sell that to our customers, which I think one increases the value of the home, the tax base, helps them park in the garage. It is just popular.
Okay, so, and I apologize, you gotta, so let's say you have your normal size house. So without a bump out, it's so
7.5 feet.
on to the property line or to the next building?
To the property line.
Okay, and so the next building is gonna have 7.5 feet.
Yeah.
The aggregate.
So your aggregate would be 15. Okay, so that's the aggregate number. It's not added up, both sides added up. It's this one house compared to the next house. added up.
Correct. But with the 5-foot minimum, regardless of bump outs or anything, no structure could go closer to the lot line, the side lot line, than 5 feet.
Okay, so
We're an aggregate of 10.
aggregate of 10. And I would ask the board members to look at our table too. Our what table is that that shows the aggregate, the side yard setbacks?
Table B on our zoning ordinance.
Give me a page number, please.
3-22.
322, because it will show that an R2, again, just as a point of reference, the side yard setback would be 6 feet minimum. You're offering
A minimum of 5.
Okay, so pretty close. The aggregate on would be 12 foot on our current, but you're saying 10. But it's important to note that in our table B, it's 10% of the lot width, whichever is less. So theoretically,
Greater.
whichever is greater. Okay. Well, then am I wrong to think theoretically it could be less and be in compliance?
Correct. That is incorrect.
I guess what I'm trying to say is to alleviate, and not saying pros or cons, I'm just trying to put the facts out. Really, this is very much in line with what our table B says for an R2. That's the point in a long-winded way.
I think also in these preliminary discussions, and you may be able to get ready to say this, I think one of the things when we were looking at it, the case scenario of the 10-foot aggregate was with a 3-car garage on both houses was why they needed that 10-foot aggregate. So depending on how the subdivision potentially were to be constructed, that would be the only case where you'd have the 10-foot. Otherwise, it would most likely be 15-foot or 12.5-foot, depending.
Okay, but by your admittance, that's a popular feature.
Is the 3rd-car garage.
The bump out. The bump outs are very, very popular.
So you're saying there's going to be a high percentage of those that would be bumped out,
The 4-foot bump out likely would be a
which
high
would take you
percentage.
down to 10 feet.
It would actually be, if you had 4 foot on both, you'd be at 12, which is what the R2 is. And I know this is a hotly debated thing, people talking about the lot sizes. Widening the lot, it doesn't change the house we're putting on it. But it does add extra street, sidewalk, infrastructure. That all has to be put across the entire frontage. That's more cost for us to build, more cost for the city to maintain once we turn that infrastructure over for the same value home. When our customers come in to buy, an extra 5 feet is not something they go and see a huge value in typically.
Very good. Good point. Any other questions or comments regarding that?
How long does it normally take you to, I mean, I realize it depends on how hot the area is that you're gonna take your subdivision into. But I mean, how long do you see this project like taking to sell 338 houses?
That is a great question that I preface with, I don't know, because we've not been in Tipton before.
Right.
We have been in Kokomo. I believe in the last year we did about 60 homes in Kokomo. We could have done more if we had been able to have more lots on the ground available for sale, but we're still developing the next section. Prior to 2020, we were about 45 to 50 a year in Kokomo, and in Columbus, Indiana, we're about 50 a year, 60 a year. So again, this is when we've only been there since 2017, 2018. So in a market like this, we're probably 50 to 60 closings a year. In I would say a little more normal time, it's probably 45.
Okay.
And that's once we start closing homes. I mean, it's probably 18 months out from closing our first time.
Sure.
I think that's important to say. So
Yeah.
the total procedure before you actually see people move in is typically
anywhere from 12 months to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'd like to circle back because I jumped down side yard immediately. I meant to go down by your points that you proposed. I do want to make sure we know that the minimum lot size is in compliance with our district performance standards. That your proposed 7,200 square feet. That is a standard that we have in R2. That is in compliance. I want that noted, just so all the facts are on the table. The lot widths. You are proposing 55 feet. Our R2 is actually 50 feet. So you are proposing 5 feet more than if we're using the R2 as our hallmark. The front yard setback, you were suggesting 20 feet, but you thought maybe 25 feet, which puts us in compliance with the R2. We discussed the side yard setback. The rear yard setback at 15 feet is in compliance with our standard district performance standard. So I do. Now, one question: maximum building height. I don't think we spell that out in our standards, do we?
45 feet.
Pardon me?
35.
So they're in compliance. Okay, so I was not aware of that. So you're in compliance with what we maximum building height. The minimum square footage you have at single-story dwellings at 1,200 square feet and multiple-story dwellings at 1,600 square feet. And with the ground floor area being at least 900 square feet. Correct me if I'm wrong, or do we have those specifications?
We do not.
Okay.
It's something, though, that we've actually been discussing.
Yes, right.
But we do not have those.
Right. Which we have been discussing as in our working committee, but the numbers are these would be in compliance with anything we had talked about proposing.
Yeah, I think we were actually looking at smaller.
Yes, I thought so as well.
Yeah.
Very good. Side, I have a question about side 0.9 siding. You say shall include but are not limited to masonry, wood, cement, fiberboard, stucco, shake boards, and batten, ephes, and vinyl. Minimum thickness of vinyl. In my field, I go to a lot of subdivisions. You suggest all these, but in essence, would it be a fair statement to say that the bulk of the sides of these will be vinyl?
Yes.
Okay. I think that illuminates the situation a little bit. There's multiple other things that could be used, but in essence, it will be vinyl.
Yes.
Masonry, a 36-inch stone masonry wainscot shall be required on all front elevations. I like that. I think that's not.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. If we go back to the siding, if the intent of it is to pick from those items, it should be may include, but are not limited to. When it says shall include, it actually means that every one of those things has to be on there, plus other things.
So
It's,
simple fix,
it's just.
strike shall and put may.
Yeah, it's just one of those
Yeah.
things. It's a wording thing.
That's what you get paid for, right, Attorney Smith?
Thank you very much. The other typo on there is it should be millimeters, not inches. This is how gauge thickness is measured with vinyl.
So Jim, not to interrupt, but
Hold on,
there,
one
should be millimeters, not inches. There were some comments in regards to individuals being concerned with, vinyl villages. Are there any recommendations or leniencies that we can put into place to require more than the minimum of the front elevation to require those? Just in contingency to answer some questions in regards to people that did come and ask that.
Well, that's the good thing about our unique position. We can put caveats on, we could tell them they have to have pink elephants in the yard. Then the city council gets to decide or debate and yay or nay it.
Right.
I
So-
think that was a suggestion that White made.
Yes. So, a certain percentage having certain percentage of homes being required to, say, be all brick.
I would not be open to all brick. That's a fad that is come and gone for the most part for full brick homes. If you go to custom built homes and Holiday Farms and Zionsville's all $1 million+ homes, and most of them barely have any brick on them. If we want to say that homes with only the 36-inch wainscot had to have three materials on the front, so you could have the 36-inch wainscot, and then horizontal vinyl, and then vertical board and batten or vinyl, or shake siding. That's something we could look at unless you were at like 30% brick on the front. The other thing I'll point out, the concern about vinyl villages that we've not gotten to in here, but we have included, it's our standard policy, is our anti-monotony policy. We mentioned we have 11 floor plans. Each of those floor plans have a minimum of 5 different front elevations, Craftsman, Tudor, different styles on the front. We do not allow the same elevation or the same primary colors to be built adjacent to each other or directly across the street. So that's another thing we internally do, because we want to make sure we have that variation.
And that's spelled out in point 16 of the proposals.
In addition to that, speaking about materials, saying that 60 Better Business Bureau complaints, or a gentleman that works on your homes stating that you use subpar materials. What is being put into place so that doesn't happen?
So our homes are built with the same sticks and bricks as any home, whether it's $2 million or an entry level home. The same engineered wood is used on all that. It's all built to the same building code. When you kind of talk about the finishes, vinyl is not a structural, brick is not a structural item. It's at that point purely aesthetics. We did put in here the minimum gauge thickness of vinyl is 0.044. Vinyl has come a long way over the last decade. If you go back to the 90s, early 2000s, standard vinyl was 0.036 then. That led to a lot of the issues you saw in some of those homes built by us and others with it waving over time. The other improvement to it that has been made is the dye is now cast through the vinyl so that it doesn't fade in the sun. It's not just sprayed on there. It's actually cast all the way through the material. Another improvement we've made in the last probably 6 years, we use all dimensional shingles. Three tab used to be common, and some of our competitors still use 3-tab shingles. When we had the really bad windstorm back in, was it 2015? Maybe we made the decision. Those didn't hold up well enough. Where their supplier told us that they didn't work. We're going to all dimensional shingles.
I have a question. In reference to the improper sewage hookup, what have you put into place to vet your subcontractors to ensure that those things don't happen?
That never should have happened to begin with. In that situation, it was a loose pipe in a crawl space of a partial basement. So something that multiple people missed, but was very, very difficult to see. Obviously, we did go after our subcontractor to hold them liable for that, but we have several procedures in place. We have an entire department dedicated to quality control to make sure mistakes hopefully get caught. Again, there are mistakes. When we do our pre-construction meeting with buyers, we tell them that there are going to be mistakes. It's our job to catch them and fix them.
So back to the 3 different types of finishes for homes. Are we documenting this? We as the commission, I mean, basically I heard you volunteer saying that you would.
If it's not 30% brick, it was my thought.
So there's an option that the person could
add additional brick to the front, and then you're still fine with 2.
So we have, I mean, this is changing this document. So some way we're not only allowing, I mean, I see him taking notes, but we're doing the same thing, right? So we get it in there on the proper. Okay, very good. So the one thing on corner lots I would like to discuss, and this goes right in line with the different types of finishes. And I don't know if this is possible or not, but first of all, I'd like you to explain, this is a little in the weeds a little bit about windows per story. I mean, so what's that mean to when you come to a corner lot and it's a 2-story lot, 2-story house, nice, now 3 different types of vinyls in front. What's the side look like?
So imagine I'm going to kind of give the explanation of why we need to add this in here first. But imagine you have a ranch home where the floor plan runs with, you have the garage on the side, and then behind that's the mudroom. Behind that, you go into the master bathroom closet to the master bedroom. If that house lays out such that the natural place to put the bed is on that wall, the floor plan might not come standard with a window on that side of the house because there's not one optimally to put it there. This is a corner lot, so you have street frontage on the side of it. This is to make sure that you don't have a blank wall that is highly visible from the public. We have to make sure that the home on there is a floor plan that allows for there to be a good size. That's why we have a minimum size on here. So you don't just have a tiny little picture window, but that you have a floor plan that has multiple windows there if it's 2 stories. So it's not just a flat wall of vinyl siding visible from the public street.
Understood. I do understand that. Would it be asking too much? Our ordinances consider a corner lot as 2 street sides, which most city ordinances do, the way I understand it. So when I was thinking of this, on those particular cases, would it be asking too much to extend the masonry to that blank side, not the front of the house side? You know, see what I'm saying?
I think we can do that.
And then even more architectural features. So. The other thing I was going to say about the development standards is I wanted to bring out the anti-monotony piece, but I don't think I could do it any better than what you had already done or explain it any better. That seems significant to me that they recognize they're not going to be one floor plan next to the next, next to the next, next to the next. I think that deserves mentioning. Then I would go into the general development standards. I'm an asphalt guy. 10 foot's not enough. Number 1, street width. I would disagree with 10 feet.
I've not paid a subdivision in any other municipality that doesn't have 12-foot wide widths.
So we have 30-foot wide of asphalt on here.
Mhm.
That is already wider than just about every residential street, other than maybe the entrance of a boulevard entrance that we do. And this is why the initial email that was read earlier asking for 3 12-foot lanes, we push back on that. To us, that is a safety issue. Normally what, I did not catch the guy's name, but he mentioned was 28-foot wide. 28-foot back-to-back or 30-foot back-to-back is the standard in most municipalities we deal with. That means that 30-foot includes the curbs. So you actually have 26-foot of asphalt on there. You widen a street, naturally cars go faster. I know everybody pictures the worst case scenario of somebody throwing a party and there being cars down the whole block, but normally that's not the case. Normally that street, you add, we're already at 30-foot wide of asphalt, that's 2 15-foot travel lanes in areas where there's not cars parked. So
it is interesting you say that, because I noticed, and I was involved in another committee that talked about how to calm traffic through our downtown. And one of the calming devices was to shrink. Shrink.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that. I'm just thinking of 10 foot, and then you have a 10-foot parking space, you're saying?
that's how it was defined in the email. I mean, 10 foot is and that's like on a busy street where you have parallel parking, you need to be able to get out. It's not, a car isn't 10 foot wide.
But all streets within this district would be 30.
Yes, that's what we have agreed to.
I have a question. Do you have any examples of your communities that are, say, 15 years or older that we could use as an example to see how well your community ages?
Down in the closest ones that are that old, there's one named Sonoma in Westfield.
Okay.
That is would be 15 to 20 years old at this point.
Okay.
Trying to think of Waterman Farms in Noblesville. There are some newer sections. Waterman Farms is potentially a good one because those are only 50-foot wide lots. So you see what the absolute narrowest where we can't do any bump outs or anything looks like. Again, we're proposing 5-foot wider lots here. But Waterman Farms that's probably a good one to look at as well.
Okay.
I have a friend who is just moving out of there actually, who bought his house 4 years ago for $150,000 more than we originally sold it, and he's now selling it for $45,000 more than he bought it for 3 years ago.
Thank you. I have another question if that's okay. But this one's for Jim Ingram, if he's still here. I'm sorry, I was unclear. Did you say that our current wastewater treatment facility can take the excess or not yet?
Can.
It can, okay.
Without question.
Thank you.
I have a question. Does your subdivision have HOAs?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
So there were some questions earlier about who's maintaining it.
right.
Until we reach 80, 90% development, we control the board of the HOA, and we're responsible for making sure common areas and everything are maintained. Once we are gone, that is turned over to them.
I have a question. Out of the percentage of neighborhoods that you build, how many do you start and then leave and sell?
We have never done that. We have some that through the downturn, people probably would say we were dumb for not doing it, but we had a neighborhood in Marion, Indiana, that we closed our last house, and there just this year after we started that in 2004.
Okay. Were you not, does anybody know who bought Jim Ashley's on County Line?
where it was started, and then the same outfit that did Wilson Street picked it up on County Line and
That was
Who did that?
Wade Journey.
They didn't start it though.
No.
So I will add one point of clarification to what I just said. There are a couple neighborhoods where we were buying lots in from a third-party developer, where the third-party developer went bankrupt and it went into bankruptcy. And then I can think of one specifically in Brownsburg. Ironically, 15 years later, we are now finishing out and buying lots from another developer to finish it. And there are plenty of subdivisions, Webster Crossing and Kokomo being one of them, where another builder started and we have come in and completed it. But we have never began development in a subdivision and walked away.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, and feel free to keep jumping in. We're having a good conversation here. Appreciate it. General Development Standard .6 sidewalk. All sidewalks within the district shall be 5 feet wide. That's a good point, I believe. The part I like is the developer will provide an off-site sidewalk along Jefferson Street from the eastern boundary to Wilson Street. And this is if the right-of-way can be provided. We understand that if it couldn't be, or I understand if it couldn't be, if the right-of-way could not, and I'm not sure why it couldn't be. I guess that's a question that maybe the mayor could answer, but I would like some verification that this sidewalk is going to go, because we want to hook that community up with the sidewalks we have in place. And I know it might be out of your ability to say, yes, it's going if you can't get the right of way, but what could stop that from happening, Mayor? Could you answer that?
I don't foresee anything that would give us
Very
there
good.
again, we know we gotta improve that intersection too, so the expectation would be it's on the north side.
There's no room for a sidewalk on that bridge.
On the bridge.
The comment is that there's no room for sidewalk on the bridge. Comment over here is there is sidewalk, there's sidewalk on it already.
There's curving on it. It's about that wide.
It is narrower,
It's very
but
narrow,
it
is what we
is.
said.
Mike from the Board of Works?
So I don't have the answer on the right of way. I believe there is enough right of way along West Jefferson to provide that walk to Wilson Street. The bridge that is in discussion would actually be east of Wilson Street. That's an area from Wilson on over to Sweetland that the city will need to be taking a look at. That's going to be part of our intersection improvements to get that walkability from this development all the way to our downtown area.
Good.
And then the bridge, I will make this statement, the bridge is actually an NDOT bridge and NDOT right of way. And NDOT has quite a bit of right of way along State Road 28.
That's not one of our assets, is it?
No.
Okay, so that's pedestrian access. Go ahead.
I have a question. What would happen if you can't get access to 28 out of that subdivision?
We have never been denied access to a state road. We have been asked to put in a traffic light in order to get access. We've been asked to provide A-cell, B-cell lanes and turn lanes to get access, but we've never been outright denied.
So they provided you with an alternative?
Yes, at our cost.
Right.
I will say that I can almost guarantee that a traffic light would not be installed here, but we almost certainly will have to shift the road slightly onto our property to allow for a turn lane in the middle and our A-cell, D-cell lanes. And that, I think that came up in a comment actually, to say we would ideally not, I mean, if we had to go the other direction, we'd have to obtain that right of way. But that's why I anticipate us shifting it so that the eastbound lane would stay pretty much where it is. The turn lane would be in the middle, and then going west towards 31, you would kind of jog around the turn lane a little bit. The other thing that will benefit when we do the traffic study is that will give NDOT updated traffic counts. They will see the traffic analysis pattern of people coming out of our neighborhood. And as a part of that process, they will evaluate the speed limit through there as well.
So in conjunction.
We've already previously noted on utilities that the piece that's going to be submitted into this are designed and constructed for the published utility construction standards. We've already discussed that. Number 9, maximum lot coverage for all impervious surfaces. Again, as a point of clarity, I want to make sure, because this is one that's kind of a knock against you, if you ask me. Yeah, our R2 would allow for 40%. Am I correct in that, Director Niblick?
Yep.
And you are proposing 55%. I think that we need to be aware of that when we make a decision.
So the impervious surface is generally a stormwater thing as much as anything. And when there was talk earlier about our storm calculations and the release rate that was far more detailed than I could give, not being an engineer. But when we design, we have to account for our impervious surface. With the increased home sizes, 1,200 square foot, you are putting a roof over, moving the driveway, having a 25-foot setback, the extra 5 by 16 foot of concrete on the front. We're asking for this so that we can sell the larger footprint homes, higher tax base, as well as give our customers the option to have rear patios and things like that without that becoming an issue. But it will be factored into the stormwater calculations to make sure that that doesn't result in additional runoff that was not anticipated.
Well, and Surveyor Henderson is adamant that this will help drainage. It'll be a net add to the alleviating any.
Drainage is my favorite thing to be brought up at these because we legally cannot make it worse, and 99.9% of the time make it better. We have to accept all drainage coming our way at its current rate. We often, in most ordinances, I haven't seen yours, we have to account for developed site runoff so that we sometimes have to offer to accept more than what's currently coming our way. And as was mentioned in detail, our release rate will be significantly lower than what it is now. In layman's terms, that means we are holding stormwater on our site, and so that it is entering the creek at a much slower rate than it currently does, resulting in less downstream flooding.
Very good. The next point that I would like to talk about, and it actually kind of goes in 10, 11, and 12, because it's kind of landscaping plant material. In particular, landscaping. I assume that you would follow all the current standards for the state. That there is a list of banned plants. In particular, there's some common ones that still get planted. I assume you sub out to landscapers. And I would go back to your quality control for your subs. Is there a system in place that who okays the landscaping plan, and is it being checked for plants that are banned in Indiana?
Steve, does your UDO have a prescribed list of species that we have to use a selection of?
Not in our ordinance.
Okay.
So
a lot of places where we go, there's a list of species that we can select from, and that's what we and if we need to look into that, I am not a landscaper. I'm not prepared to give you a list of different species we can put on here tonight. But typically, that's how we do that. And if situations come up like this where we get to one where we don't have it, we just grab the next town over that we're already doing, and so that they can continue pulling from the same set of species.
Very good. And it's an older ordinances from the state, so I'm sure that they're in compliance, but it would be something that we would need to be aware of. It sounds like we just got another assignment for the working committee. But that does go right into the buffering. I would like to talk about the buffering that you're proposing along State Road 28. It includes a 3-foot tall berm include at least 5 evergreen trees per 100 lineal feet. As we know, this is basically a screen coming into our town. So I would have some concerns, a couple of concerns. This is fairly vague to me. Like, I would like to see something more that says the caliper or what the mature size will be, because we do want to see a screening there. I would. I wouldn't want this to be 3 little mature trees when they're mature, would be only 2 foot wide. I would want to, what is the species that you're going to use and what would be the mature size of that, so it does do what we want, that's what we'd like to see done.
I'll look into that, but we can easily put in a caliper there. The intent is the 5 per 100 feet, so you have 20-foot spacing. So at full growth, you have a screen. You have a lot of times people want every 10 feet in 10 years when they're growing, they're on top of each other and choking each other out.
Right. And that goes.
Question about that. Since it is a state road, how far back will you bring the 3 feet of the berm from the state road as far as visibility is concerned coming on and off of it? Because that is highly trafficked. I mean, you have it right up there close to it with this field of vision.
It'll be set back fairly significantly. Do you recall what the half right of way?
It is though, is what I'd like to know.
I don't recall.
So the state road right of way is significantly wider than what is the road width is. My guess is that's a 60-foot half right of way. So if you have a 14-foot travel lane, that's another 36 foot of right of way before you even get to where our property starts. Plus we'll likely have a shift with the ACL decel lane. So visibility at entering and exiting, I have zero concern with.
I have a question. With similar communities like this, have you seen a strain on your police and fire services in the communities that you have started in?
We have not. That kills me to say that we're soon approaching $300,000 average sales price, but it's one of those things that people always bring up and imagine the worst case,
right.
People moving in, and I don't think you're going to have any other types of moving into these homes of people that already live in Tipton that are respectful and kind people.
I guess I wonder why you would ask him that question, Lindsay. I guess it would be dependent on what it is we provide for public safety, which at the meeting of the council, there are things in mind. We are working at a minimum. You add the different peoples and stuff, and it does put a strain on the community, being we don't have the workforce.
Right.
So, I mean, to ask him, I don't think that he's really qualified for that part of it.
It was a concern that somebody brought up.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would like to add something to that too. It's been a while since I've done annexations, but it was mentioned that you look at annexation, that's a process that the plan commission is not really involved with. But one of the things that's typically done would be a fiscal plan and policy for that. And what it does is it requires the city to look at its services and whether or not they can be that level of service, whether it's fire, police, park and rec, whatever the service, street collection, trash collection, whatever services are being provided are maintained at a certain level. And it's during that annexation process that if the fire department realizes, hey, we need new staffing, more equipment to service this, that's where that would be identified. Same thing with the police department and other city services. So we don't maybe have an answer tonight, but I would hope that during the annexation process that that the city departments take a close look at their level of service and whether or not this is going to affect it. And that's the time to put in, we need 2 new police officers and a new police car. Something for an example.
Well, as population increases, then the minimum manning of those departments would increase with the increase of population. So it's not like unfortunately, we are at minimums, but we're not going to go hopefully below that.
Sure.
Well, and a lot of that is driven, like Mike Terry was saying, is driven by tax base, lit income, which is driven by population base.
Yeah, but the point is that part of this property is zoned agricultural. And according to our article 602.01, we must be consistent with the goals of our comprehensive plan, which is agricultural.
It's not zoned agriculture. The comp plan calls for it. It's zoned S1 suburban residential. All of this land is.
That's not what my understanding was.
I know, that's why I jumped in.
Okay, well, then with that being said, I'm not sure why we're pushing this forward so quickly, not to be able to do our due diligence. And we personally look at the statement of the law and what we have before us.
Sure.
The other thing is this is county property. Was this brought to the county board? And what was their recommendation? I mean, I have plenty of questions, not for these gentlemen from what this, but with our own procedure and following procedure and protocol in the due time and process. Annexation tax, Mike says, tax, but we cannot collect tax dollars on what's not ours. So we've got a problem here.
The one thing we probably skipped over in the process is I believe we filed the concurrent annexation already, correct?
We were waiting on the property owner's signature on the annexation, so we should be receiving that within the next couple of days, and we'll be filing that shortly after.
So
Has the county been approached with your plan?
Well, now, hold
It's
on, do you
county
understand?
plan.
No, notice, we're in the
property.
2-mile jurisdictional fringe, so
That's
this is,
the fringe, but that's not for development.
it certainly is. The zoning ordinances for the 2-mile jurisdictional fringe are based on city. That's cut and dry. There,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Or we wouldn't be
that's,
talking about it.
yeah, it's city's choice.
But what I'm saying is that with this, in order to do your research on all of that, we need time to look at all of that, because my interpretation of this may not be clear. And so therefore, I'm wanting to know, why is this given to us on Friday? That's the first time I seen it. Was Friday, and we have the meeting on Wednesday.
Well,
So my questions are just, other than this, it seems to be we're making a lot of plans on a pending annexation that hasn't happened. We don't know what all's going to be wrapped up in it. We don't know any of this stuff. And I do understand developers like to know there's a potential for that, and the city likes to know there's going to be development. I know that part of it.
okay, and I would suggest that let's continue about their specifics, and then we'll have a time as a commission to back and forth with
Great,
your
because
concerns.
I do
and
have
then-
another concern when we get to that
Okay.
part.
that's good. So now I'm back to the plants, sorry.
One thing, sorry. Go ahead.
Yep, go right ahead.
Something needs to be put in there about controlling of the ditch. Who's taking care of that? Mowing, taking care of noxious weeds. What's the protocol for that? Because that's the last thing I want to do is see that get out of hand. And that can be
Is that an HOA?
left alone pretty easy.
So something more specific than yeah.
There's nothing in here
I think
on
we
that.
heard them state that they maintain all the ground until it's turned over to an HOA.
I believe it's a county legal drain. We will mow up to the waterway and be responsible for that. And obviously we said we can't allow erosion or construction to go into that area. But ultimately the county controls the flow of the water through there, is my belief.
Yeah, I'm talking about the maintenance of the plant materials there along the ditch. That's on your property.
Yeah, that's on the HOA.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
But during construction, before construction, I mean, that needs to be taken care of.
and that goes right in line with why I'm going to circle back around the maintenance period for any plantings.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, has any other community made you maintain them until they're healthy? I know there are some whenever you do some state lettings, they have a maintenance period. that, you have healthy established plants before they're turned over?
We've never got that far into the weeds, if I'm being honest, but as we turn over the HOA, we have to make sure that they are healthy. I mean, we are the HOA until it's turning over until it's turned over to the homeowners. The homeowners aren't going to be wanting to accept control of that if we have a bunch of dead trees that they're responsible for.
And Jim, I think, the HOA that's being talked about, the establishment of that, typically you would see that with the conditions, covenants, and restrictions on the subdivision would be an item that would be submitted during the plating process. The county or city would not be a party to those CCRs, those covenants. That's a private agreement between those homeowners. And in many cases, that's where that particular language, as far as maintenance of public or open space, would be discussed. That's typically where I've seen it, but there may be something that wants to be put in this as part of the PUD, but certainly the Plan Commission can look at.
Well, I'd be interested. That's something we can discuss. I think the maintenance of the plants is something that I agree with you, Adrian, that we need some clarity on. That might be some sort of caveat that maybe it is simply that they will be established before you turn them over to the HOA. So.
Yeah, that's who would have handled stuff, but you had a bunch of homeowners talk about how the previous owner maintained that ditch. And during construction process, this all needs to be taken care of for these people. It needs to be mowed, it needs to be manicured, it needs to look.
Of course, some of that would fall on to our, Judy, you could explain on this. So some of that's going to fall on to if there's something unmowed. I mean, the violations of the zoning ordinance also includes, well, not zoning ordinance, I guess, but
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement, yes.
So once it's annexed into the city, if it is, then they would fall under the municipality 8 inches. And I have noticed developers before. And the city has been responsible for mowing property that was currently being developed. And then that was placed as a lien on the property. When they sold the property, that lien was paid.
Now that's in the city limits.
City limits. That's not a jurisdictional fringe. Right,
No,
right.
only if it gets annexed. If it doesn't, then it would be Corey Henderson, who is the township trustee.
And just so you're aware, our intent would be ideally to, even once we close on the ground, to lease it to the people that are farming it currently, because, we don't want to have to go and mow a whole bush.
Well, I just think it needs to be in there when we're clarifying that.
So, but once we own it, we are responsible for it.
Good discussion. Are we comfortable with that, or we'll move forward? It was mentioned and clarified. Mailboxes will be opposite side of the street, designated as street parking. They specify that out in their plan. Could you illustrate to us?
Yeah.
No,
It's
on
not.
here it doesn't.
It's not.
But it was, that was,
So it needs to be corrected.
yes.
It was a typo.
That's correct. The mailboxes being on the same side of the street as the parking was a typo that has since been corrected.
Is there a reason that they use the collective mailbox instead of down the street?
So we've ran into that where postmasters have forced us to do that. Our customers do not like the gang mailboxes, but the U.S. Postal Service is pushing in more and more jurisdictions to go that way to make it easier on the mail delivery man or woman. So ultimately,
Who has to say so? You guys?
that's we've had postmasters going back and forth with the town councils on who has the say so there. Legally, I believe it's the postmaster, because mailboxes are federal property.
Well, but again, these specifics, Mayor Tom?
I was informed by the postmistress here in Tipton that that would be a drive route. Would not be a walk route, so it would be a drive route. She did not say it would be required to be a common, what was the term for the box?
I just say collective.
Yeah, not the collective box, but it would be a
Drive
drive
route. Okay.
drive route, not a walk route.
But, correct me if I'm
Drive route
wrong.
uses those though, I know that for a fact.
Or-
Drive routes do use the collective boxes.
Correct me
But
if
I
I'm
don't think
wrong,
in this-
but these would be one of the details that would be worked out when you did the secondary, when we did the secondary.
Well, I do think, yes. What the mayor is saying is that it would not be a walk route, that mailboxes would be necessary. However, would that change to where there would be these central mail collections? Possibly.
So from my experience, I think we're good with, as long as making sure we have the correct version, which I'm looking at says opposite side of the street.
Yeah.
Because the postmaster will likely, if we have them on one side, tell us which side they would prefer for efficiency. We would then need to make sure we install the no parking signs on the same, no parking signs go on the same side as the mailboxes go.
Right.
If we go to the gang collective mailboxes, just still go on the same side as the no parking signs.
If you don't go to gang boxes, stupid question, but I just clarify. I assume each mailbox would look the same.
Yes.
And is there some architectural features though? They're not going to be one $3 metal ones that you get at.
No, we can send you the picture of the post we generally use if you would like. We buy about 1,200 of them a year.
Yeah.
Big fish.
Well, I would assume that would be part of the details that are worked out.
It will now.
Another point that I think needs, another point that needs illustrated, I would like to keep the attention up to here, is could you explain why a tornado warning siren is included in this plan? And is that something you commonly do?
No,
I wanted it. That was something I requested, and I've seen in other communities. Now, here's an opportunity for land to be dedicated to the county or the city for the installation of a tornado siren. And it's easier to get a land dedicated now than realizing after, where you've got 300 or 200 homes out there and realizing, hey, we ought to have a siren out there. Now's the time just to get the land. We're not asking necessarily, or at least from my perspective, not asking the developer to install it, just dedicate the land. The exact location, we would include Chuck Bell with and where the nearest siren is in that vicinity of the city, and try to make it to where it's beneficial to not only this subdivision, but Lennox Acres and the homes west of 300, even some of the Pioneer and those folks too. It was a simple request on my part, and they've agreed to at least look into that and dedicate the land. Now, is that 15 by 15? Is it a 50 by 50 square? Those are the things that I think we can get from Chuck Bell. Yeah, that's why I asked for that.
Understood. Okay.
Take blame.
Very good. And then getting down close to the end here of the points, and then we can open this up even further. So I am interested in amenities. The developer will provide playground trails and or recreational areas within the development. When this becomes an HOA, who will be entitled, who could use these amenities? Do you have an answer for that?
The HOA would be responsible for maintaining them. I've never seen them kick other people out. We do not plan on building a parking lot at this point to make it a public, make it a city park or anything. We have done in Columbus, we did dedicate the park to the city. The Parks Department wanted it, and it was in a spot that could be accessible to other subdivisions in the area. That one made sense. Most times the city wanted the HOA to maintain it so that they don't have any liability or responsibility for it.
An amenity that I'm particularly interested in is the trail. What's your standard trail construction? Because we do not have a specification.
Actually, we do. So the city does, the city, not the county. Thank you. This was adopted by the City Board of Works. Trails minimum width 10 feet. All slope requirements shall follow the sidewalk standards above. And minimum HMA typical section shall consist of 3-inch. So anyway, it goes on to the details of but it is a 10-foot wide.
We're a little further along on that than I thought we were, so good. I guess that's what your trail will be, huh? 10 foot wide, that's wide. That's 2 foot wide. Suggest, so that's.
And I did catch that's allowed to be asphalt, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't read
I heard something about sidewalk and just want to make sure we could
It's
pave it.
ADA compliance is what it references.
And that, again, the details would be worked out of the placement of that, but that would be important because I definitely see that being used by the general public, you know, and would really strive for it to be used by the general public.
And the intent is for the main section of it to follow the ditch, the creek through there, and eventually potentially be extended elsewhere, tie out to the front along 28 and Jefferson Street, so that it can be used.
Is your trail on here at all or not?
Not on that one.
Okay. Is there would there be like a bridge or something to access?
We did commit, I can't remember what number in here, to a pedestrian crossing.
Okay.
That one in turn would be maintained by the HOA.
Yes.
What number is it?
What number?
Number 7. Under general development standards.
Oh.
The developer shall provide pedestrian connection from the eastern section of the development to the western section. Very good.
The utilities.
Sorry about that.
No, I didn't catch that either.
Yeah.
What about crossings and trail near bedroom windows? You think that's-
We have trails go through, I mean, not the rear yards, but in common area behind all the time. Some people decide to put fences up. Others like having it in the view. Obviously, our goal is to have it as far off the back of the lots as possible.
So
That's one of
between
the.
houses.
It might cut between the side of houses to get out to the frontage at some point, but we'll make sure. I mean, that's when we get into the engineering and the lot spacing and where the easements go to have a minimum of 10 foot between lots for it to cut through.
Do we have any more particular questions about the standards and plans as put forth by Arbor Homes regarding this Canal Run Planned Unit Development District Ordinance? I know we have some conversations between ourselves that we need to have, but those are kind of specifics to that plan.
In a subdivision of this size, typically how many green spaces do you have?
It varies significantly. What's our open space percentage here?
I don't know the percentage offhand, but on this particular plan, we're showing about 60 acres of common area. A large portion of that would end up being open space.
So that because of the floodway cutting through the middle here, we do have a large amount of open space. We've got the detention ponds on both sides, but the bulk of our open space is through the floodplain that allows us to put the trail. And they're talk to the county. They would allow the trail to encroach on their right of way, not obviously in the ditch, but on what they control. So we can get it off the back of lots, make that amenity the playground.
The
We'll probably
playground
go.
would go.
My guess is Because my guess is today it would probably go somewhere around where the trail cuts out to one of the ponds along the floodway. That's probably a logical location for it. We haven't gotten far enough in, know exactly how big those ponds are going to be yet, but that's kind of where we're at this point envisioning that.
I have a question. Are these homes in the floodplain?
No. As I mentioned earlier, all of our construction is outside of not just the floodway, but the floodplain
Okay.
as well.
Okay, I missed that. Thank you.
Any other questions that we would like to address to Mr. Ressler or Mr. Rector?
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to start the discussion among ourselves about a point that was made about our comprehensive plan. It was presented as must was a key word. And I think that's interesting. I'd like to get everybody else's take. I'd probably like to get the legal take of it first. If you care to, could you illuminate that at all?
I can't illuminate it any better than Mr. Johnson did when he refuted that claim.
Mm-hmm. So you would feel like you would.
First of all, I'm not acknowledging it, but yes, that's how it's interpreted.
Understood.
Okay. I believe Mr. Johnson correctly summarized it from his experience, been on the Plan Commission for many years and dealing with that comprehensive plan.
One thing I've always found interesting about the comprehensive plan process is that unlike an ordinance, which is law, comprehensive plan is adopted by resolution. So the fact of the matter is that comprehensive plans regretfully are compromised as development occurs over the years. And that is why comprehensive plans ought to be updated periodically or reviewed periodically, is that as development comes in, maybe the comprehensive plan isn't followed completely or exactly. But again, to violate the comprehensive plan isn't against the law. It is against a resolution, which, again, I'm not saying that the neighbors' concerns were valid on this, but it is always interesting that the comprehensive plan is not law. And so it has been changed over the time. And frankly, even if you do a rezoning, not only this one, but any other kind of rezoning that did not match up with the comprehensive plan, doesn't invalidate the rezoning. It doesn't really invalidate the comprehensive plan. It just chips away at it. So the comprehensive plan.
Okay, but with that said, I'm reading in our own book of our own ordinances what it says. And what it says is PUD districts are subject to the standards and purposes of this article and the intent of this ordinance and must be consistent with the goals of the Tipton City Comprehensive Plan and regulations.
And that is what
that is what the verbiage say. Then you go to 602.03. It also says all development within the PUD district shall comply with the land use requirement. So my misunderstanding is if Mr. Helfermeyer farmed this ground, how could he farm something that is not considered agricultural? Okay, so if it's deemed agricultural, then this is agricultural on the south part of that property. So I'm just going by our own guidelines that we put in place with the intent of having a good plan set forth for our citizens. You know, my thought on this is that, yes, we want the American dream, and part of the American dream is to be a homeowner. Let's don't make it the American nightmare. She had mentioned the Better Business Bureau. I too did my homework on the Better Business Bureau. And when I did it on there, the Better Business Bureau makes a disclosure that their complaints are not all inclusive because it's too many too less. The rating for Arbor Home is not based on customer complaints, but a different standard. So those are two different things, what we're seeing ratings and complaints. I printed off 13 pages of complaints. They weren't necessarily small ones. Some of them were pretty big. I just don't want to give our residents and our future children who are going to be residents something that's less than subpar. I want us to take our time, look at this fully, look at the letter of the law, then make a decision. That is what I'm asking for. I am not against growth. Please don't misunderstand that. But let's make it go in the right direction with more than houses stacked on top of each other, and 339, 342, 338 is excessive, especially whenever I see that as agriculture. So that part, I need to be able to see that, and I can't see that right now or take any of your words at it. I want to look at it. And it's not being allowed for this time. So just from the what short time I've investigated it, I'm just seeing some things that I need more clarity, which I think the majority of the citizens said they do too.
That's your take on it?
Yes,
That's valid?
all I have to say on it.
yeah,
But
it's-
as far as this is concerned, I see what we have in our own book right here.
But a comprehensive plan is not.
No, but this is talking about it must be consistent with that. The ordinance must be consistent with that. So therefore.
Must be
we-
consistent with our comprehensive plan.
Right.
And you know, there's a paragraph in our comprehensive plan that says that it's a living, breathing, basically it says it's a changing document.
But it's
So-
not changed right now. This is what it is.
Well, then again, that,
We need to then go back and take a look at it instead of Bullhouse.
well, you are
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
confused about what. So
I
this
probably
is,
am. That's why I need more time,
it is
Jim.
zoned as, it's all zoned as R1.
No, S1.
S1, excuse me.
Then
S1.
how was it agriculture?
That's the comprehensive piece. That in their comprehensive plan, a part of it shows it as ag area. A bulk of it shows it as residential. Has nothing to do with zoning. That's all comprehensive plan. It's zoned for residential,
Okay, but.
which means it
Okay,
can,
what
and
we're
ag,
doing on
ag
this.
is a permitted use in that residential area.
Okay, just going by this. This is where my confusion comes, that I need help on.
But if you're going by that, then there should be no BZA.
I don't disagree with that, Michelle. I think it has a great purpose, and that's why you've been charged to make decisions concerning that.
And that's what we're doing here.
No, right now, I'm just trying to understand all the things they're trying to bring forth and what I'm seeing so quickly.
So could we recap what these steps would be taken, what steps have been taken, what steps would be taken through this for our responsibilities and how it gets shifted to the next step?
Well, I do have one more question. May I go backwards a moment? I know we decided to change our agenda, but since there wasn't a staff report on your recommendation for this, why is that? Wouldn't that be a part of this?
Typically, I do not, and if you go back and look on rezonings, I do not offer staff reports. I have not offered
Okay.
while I've been here. Since this is, unlike the Board of Zoning Appeals, which they make the final decision, they ask for a recommendation. In this case, you're just giving a recommendation onto the legislative body, and it is a legislative act. It's not anything that I've done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I think it's important to go ahead and recap what our roles and responsibilities are and how that goes to the bigger picture.
There's been some changes to this proposed PUD, corrections, typos, and then some actual changes to numbers and things like that. I think you've got a couple of different options. Again, this is a recommendation. You can vote on a recommendation. Someone can make a motion and second it and consider a recommendation. But with these changes, I want to make sure that this ordinance is exactly what we've discussed. And I'm just raising that question. The public hearing is closed. So technically, there's no more public comments. The Plan Commission can ask that, or can table the discussion right now. You can wait a month, you can try to schedule a special meeting in a week and ask that the ordinance actually be redrafted as tonight.
With the changes that have been.
And at that point, let's say they come, for example, come back next week with a special meeting, we would pick it up right where we are right now. Only instead of having this copy in front of us that's marked up, we would have the final version, and our responsibility, or the Plan Commission's responsibility, would be to ensure that what's in front of you is exactly what you agree to. And on that, you can then make a recommendation on that PUD one way or the other. That's where I kind of see it. I feel like if you try to make a recommendation based upon what we've changed, you're leaving it up to staff to try to make those changes along with the petition without review before it goes on to the council. And I'm hesitant to do that. I want to use your input on that final version. So,
well, that would give some breathing room.
That's it, I want to breathe.
So if we think we're going towards something like that, I would like to do, and I know it's getting late and I don't want to delay this any longer, but if we are going to relook at this, let's go to what are the points that we're going to be adjusted. Okay. Let's take 5 minutes to go through those points so we are clear. Arbor Home representatives are clear. And then we could look at then we can decide whether we want to wait this to our regular meeting or we have a special meeting. But can we start with the points that we would like clarification on and changed? Could somebody lead this? I mean, I took notes, but I didn't take it down specifically.
You did great job.
Oh, I'll have to go back through all the minutes.
I'll kind of go through. I'll go through it, and I think the first would be section 2 definitions. David wanted some language clarification on, instead of saying subdivision and development ordinance, that it would say the City of Tipton subdivision control ordinance and the City of Tipton zoning ordinance.
Okay.
On the next page, was there any more on page 4?
I do not believe so.
No, I don't think so.
On page 5, the front yard setback, the minimum front yard setback will be 25 feet from the street right of way.
Correct.
Going down to number 9, siding materials may include but are not limited to, and then instead of inches, it was millimeters.
And we added 3 different types of finishes for homes with less than 30.
That's the next one.
Okay, so that would be included. So what would be the proper verbiage that you'll put in on that?
So homes that do not have 30% masonry exclusive of garage doors and windows shall have 3 materials on the front elevation.
Very good.
And then what?
Yeah.
And then number 12, corner lots was also changed to include masonry on both sides of the streets. Is that correct?
Both front setbacks.
Most front yards, yeah.
Yes.
Any more on that page? On page 6, I don't know how if you want to take care of that 4, that floating 4 out there, but
Yeah.
maybe just a renumeration. The other one was down at number 8, the utilities. Again, that was just language, all utilities within the district, and then what I read earlier.
Will be designed and constructed per the published utility construction standards.
Yep.
Very good.
Number 9 was question. Was there any change on that?
No.
It's still 55%. Okay.
I think Jim had mentioned that it was 40% on our classification. Yep, and we're not asking
No,
nothing?
the actual definition, it's 40% of the building area, so it's two different, comparing apples and oranges. They're using impervious surfaces. Our ordinance doesn't count impervious surfaces, it counts buildings and
So-
structures, so.
We're not asking for that then, when he said that, mark that out?
Right.
Okay.
Because they're measuring driveways and sidewalks,
So number
which
9 will
is,
stand.
they are
Okay.
more accurately measuring with regard to rainfall.
Okay, because I wrote that down, so that's why I asked.
Number 11, banned plants were discussed. Was there any language or anything agreement to that?
I think maybe you guys could go back and put the verbiage together on that one.
We'll include a list of species.
Natives would be much appreciated.
We'll include native species.
The number 12,
Yeah.
I have 13 next. We couldn't even go 12.
buffering, we talked about
The caliper, the shrub size,
the mature
which will add some language.
mature,
What did we do?
they call it caliper size of, that's the size of the tree when it's planted.
Uh-huh.
And that will tell you how mature it will be, basically. I mean,
What was that size?
They're gonna.
hasn't
Oh,
been
they're
spelled
gonna
out
have
that
to-
way. That
will be
one.
determined, okay.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
That's probably why I didn't note it.
Any more on that page?
13.
The mailbox.
Now we're on page 7.
Yes, sir.
We did have, make sure we get the corrected language. Mailboxes will be on the opposite side of the parking. Like I said, I think I had that. I don't know why it didn't show up on this one, but.
Adrian, are you comfortable with your concerns, our concerns with the maintenance?
I mean, we're not addressing the ditch, and that's a main concern.
Uh-huh.
So I think that needs to be its own little category there.
So could you throw it out, what would you think? I mean, just.
Well, I mean, it needs to be maintained.
Mhm.
I mean, if
During construction.
post-construction,
Until turned over to HOA.
yeah, and even then it needs to be maintained.
Well,
I mean, I've
yeah.
seen lots of these just get turned over and they just grow up and
We
there's
can get with the,
15-foot tall grass and everything else.
we can get with the drainage board and agree to some language there. Make sure we don't encroach on what they need and want to do with the ditch, but make sure we address your concerns.
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page
Yeah.
there.
But if it's not in there, you can't hold them to it.
Well, that's what I'm gonna ask. Can you add language to address open space maintenance?
Yeah.
And then we'll look at it.
Yeah,
Ditches
that'd be great.
and open space.
So that would be page 7.
Mhm.
Obviously, page 8 is just signature pages of the council.
Section 6.
Oh.
Section 6 was also the language about the city of Tipton zoning ordinance and
Right.
subdivision control. Language change. And Jim, did you change the and/or in 15?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think I got an answer on that.
Okay.
So there's something that we didn't discuss, but the legal description has been checked and double checked, and you're 100% comfortable with that, right?
I guess I will be. This was a legal description that they provided to us, and
Of course, that's got to be 100% correct. That's okay. So tell me what the semantics would this be then? You're going to go back and work on the verbiage. You're going to send it to planning director, he's gonna mark it up and say, no, change this with the help of attorney, I assume, or,
I think
We need to do a red line version of it, probably based on our, and then send it so that it, what we talked about the changes are gonna jump out of this.
okay,
And you can tell that.
okay.
I'm committing you to that, but I think you're not, I mean, I think that's how you want the.
I think that's best for everybody.
And as soon as you get that back to us, we are off tomorrow due to a holiday, Veterans Day. And, but as soon as that's back to us, it's up to you folks now to decide if you want to have a special meeting or not. Or just wait until our December meeting. That's totally up to you too. But this red line version will be back to you and of course made available to the public. But again, the public hearing's over. All we're doing is continuing this discussion and this debate. When that new version comes back, that's where we pick it up, like we are right now. And at that point, if there's no other changes to it, that's what I would expect somebody to make a motion on in one way or the other. Yeah.
And in that motion, if it's favorable, unfavorable, that whole thing goes to the city council.
Right.
And that's another chance for the public to then touch base with the elected officials. My opinion on a meeting, I hate to get in these forced, it's got to be in a hurry. I would say let's wait and hold this until our normal stated December meeting, which is.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with this.
Would be the 9th.
Yeah, that's.
With Thanksgiving and everything. Hate the delay, but that I think makes sense.
Very good.
Yes, and that would be on the 9th?
Thursday the 9th.
Yes.
So there again, quorum will be important on that night.
And I do want to make an announcement that the notices, there won't be any more notices. The one thing we will do probably is go out and change the signs that's on the property. But as far as joining property owners or a legal notice in the newspaper, that won't occur. So basically, this is the
How do
notice.
we know when the red line is back to you, so we can get that?
Give us a call up at the office. And
I mean, a couple
I
weeks, so-
I honestly
Fine,
meant
fine. You guys will have
to put this version on the website, and absolutely, I thought I did, but I didn't. I will make a note that once we get that will be on the cities and counties website. But anybody that would like a copy of it, when it's available, we can email it to you, we do want to get that out to you folks.
Any other comments, concerns that we can raise tonight?
Okay, so we're doing this on the 9th, correct?
December 9th.
As our current plan, it would be a plan, yes.
So do we need to make a motion to table this until December 9th? Because I'll make the motion to table this discussion until December the 9th.
I think I would
6
think I see.
o'clock here at the city hall.
It's been motioned to table this discussion until December 9th. I'd be looking for a second.
Second.
All in favor signify with a yay.
Yeah.
Opposed? It's been tabled. I would also be looking for the most meaningful motion.
Second.
Second. We stand on
Let's roll.
Table.
Don't you go to these kind of long meetings all the time?
Yeah, but I have an infant now.